Welcome to the Norm America Show. Hey, you. I'm supposed to say that now. Your host, Rob Norm, finally home. Forgot my hat, so you get to see my balding head tonight. Bring on the lefties to say that I'm malding. A word I was unfamiliar with as a boomer until I started streaming. I guess, if the hat fits, right? So, your host, Rob Norm, finally home in the home studio. I could be loud tonight. Now, somewhere downstairs, my wife's there, but the Hank man is spending the night at his grandma's house because my mean wife had me out in tornado-esque conditions this evening, going to Home Depot and Tractor Supply to get stuff for some yard work tomorrow. So she has decided that tomorrow will be a good day to put some kind of similar to like some mulch stuff around the trees in our yard and then a trimming around it. So we went to Home Depot to get that sort of stuff. So I was a little late getting started here. A little late night trip to Home Depot, but we can do whatever. We can get loud tonight if we want. Is my wife watching yet? It's okay if I get loud, right? She's like, maybe we can watch a movie or something. And I was like, okay, what do you want to watch? After some discussion, she was like, just go stream. So here we are. You know, fun stuff. Hey, thanks, Omnilux. $2 that will go towards the trowel that I purchased my wife for yard work tomorrow. So thanks so much. Yeah, it should be a good day. We're going to talk about the big trial today. Depp and Heard? No, not really. I don't have much to say on it that I haven't already said. It was only peripherally intriguing to me, the case, because it was just more evidence that the whole Me Too, anytime a woman says anything, it's absolutely true, screw the guy, it was bullshit. Good for Johnny Depp that he actually has the money and the power to fight back against shit like that. Most people don't. So, I don't know, maybe some people wake up, but as far as the trial goes, I don't really care. Interesting, I understand people were entertained by it, but not my forte. Do I think the Texas shooter could have been radicalized by the feds? Could be. I don't see proof of it yet, but in a world where case after case has been people radicalized by the feds over and over again, including the Whitner kidnappers, who knows? Certainly could be the case. I don't know. It's hard to say. I haven't seen proof of that. As always with these kind of insane cases, people rush to judgments. I myself am guilty of that as well. So I don't know what the full story is. I don't think anyone does at this point. But, the exploitation of the situation for people making political points I find to be pretty crappy. But again, I'm not saying I've totally been outside of that scope of things. So I haven't really... I did my video on Texas last week. It's such a depressing topic. People are acting so poorly about. I just don't really care to talk about it right now until I see something else that I find to be newsworthy about it, and I really don't see it at this point. So, did that happen, Vita? I didn't even know about that. Yeah, I saw that little clip of the Mr. Girl shit the other day on Destiny show when I talked to. Let's be honest, Destiny. I don't know if he was tired ending his stream. He didn't really want to talk to me. I don't mean in a rude way. I think he was tired and was just, oh, okay, yeah, I'll talk to you. So he didn't. It's not like the conversation had much to go, but I did mention that that clip of that Mr. Girl guy just like berating his girlfriend was just ridiculous bullshit. It's a guy who has a higher opinion of himself than he actually deserves, that thinks that he's some kind of, psychoanalyst or something. He's not. He's just an asshole. At least in that video. And I haven't seen much of his stuff. But in that video, there he is standing shirtless, just like mocking his girlfriend, being a controlling a-hole. So I told Destiny that, and Destiny was like, maybe you should talk to him. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true, Jay Halen. So, yeah, I haven't seen what Destiny said about it. Let's get some water. What's up, Boomer Team 6? So yeah, the trial I want to talk about a little is this Sussman trial and the things behind it. And then maybe we'll take some calls. Maybe we'll chum in a left-winger. Get him on the hook. Is there a defining moment in my life that made me realize you're an old man? I don't know. I mean, recently I was super excited to get a dumpster. That was pretty old man. It's just today we decided to go to Home Depot and Tractor Supply. It was 7:30. And both me and my wife are like, 7:30, that's borderline. And I was like, you remember when we first started dating, like our evening didn't get started until like 10 p.m.? And now it's like 7:30. It's like, ooh, if we're still in the house at 7:30, that's it. Yeah, yelling we were wrong about inflation. No, Econo Boy told me they were right. Come on. He's well respected in economic circles. I saw that today. There were a bunch of people, there were people in the Biden camp or people on CNN and stuff that were saying that were Obama appointees like, well, all the money printing and stuff and sending money to people, it did, exacerbate inflation, but we think it was for good reasons. And I just wanted to call CNN and be like, don't you understand about velocity? See, my friend Econo Boy, right, who is well respected in economic circles, he assured all of us that increasing the money supply by 50%, that doesn't cause inflation because it has to do with velocity of the spending. And so all of these people that are now coming out and saying the obvious, yeah, that significantly exacerbated inflation. They're all wrong. Econo Boy was right. They're all wrong. They're wrong. He's well respected in the field of economics. Right? Not me. I'm just a little old average guy, He knows more than me about it. Oh, well, but trust him on all the other crazy batshit economic things that he has to say. People that cheered for locking down the economy and then are like, oh, well, we're shocked to see that harmed the economy. Really? But we're experts in the field. Who could have predicted inflation wouldn't have been transitory? Who could have predicted that it would have been bad? Isn't it weird? Oh boy, I hate getting proven right so many times. How many times do I debate someone only to have it within a short period of time been proven to be right? Don't worry, Econo Boy assured us inflation won't be a big deal by the end of the year. So tell your friends, don't worry. In which I think that I'm the only person that I've seen in the country accurately predict what the story will be. Mark it down. I've predicted it over and over and over. You could stamp it again. Ready? I'll say it again. Come November, December, inflation year to year will be over like 5 or 6% is my prediction. Now I'm not very strong about that prediction. I predicted it'll still be a high number. But whatever that number is, they're going to say, see, inflation is massively declining. But let me explain what that number really means. If I was to tell you that a president in 2 years was going to cause, in a 2-year period, inflation to rise 19%, 18%, you would say, that's devastating. Now, maybe the way it went was year to year from 2020 to 2021, it went up 9%. And then year to year from 2021 to 2022, it went up another 9% for a total of 18%. You would say that's really bad. But what if it went up from 2020 to 2021, 16%, and then from 2021 to 2022, only 2%? That's still an increase of 18%, but they would say, see, we've got inflation under control. It's not a problem now. It only went up 2% year over year. That's what's going to happen. The inflation numbers were so staggering year to year that the inflation's already so high that the increase won't seem that high. So they'll celebrate it. They're going to say, see, look. It's just like they did with COVID numbers in places like New York. Forced COVID patients into nursing homes, resulting in incredibly high death rates early in the pandemic. And then, once they killed off so many of the vulnerable people that would have been dying in later months, they were like, see, almost no one's dying now. Right, because you killed all those people months earlier. But they acted like that was some sort of victory. Yeah, inflation is up globally, only it's worse in the United States than it is around the rest of the world. And what's the reason that inflation's up globally? Well, because of lockdowns and massive money printing, which were both policies that the Democrats endorsed, including Joe Biden. Inflation ain't up because COVID. It's up because of the reaction to COVID, which people like me accurately predicted would be a disaster. Here we are. But what do I know? I'm not well respected in the field of economics. Yeah, thanks, Vita. Yeah. It's incredible what you could do with statistics. Just take a snapshot of a time frame that benefits your argument, and boom, there you go. Do I live on some acreage? No, I probably own half an acre. Maybe 3/4. Right on a main road. I'm sort of in a very small, on the outskirts of a very small town, but it's a main road that goes by my house. There are some nice woods right behind me, though, but I don't own them. But the people that do own them don't mind if we're walking there. It's a nice trail that goes through. So, hello, it's real. So, I found it interesting. Other things that were interesting, maybe we'll talk about later, but I do want to get to the Sussman Trial. I found it very interesting. Biden's comments today on the baby formula crisis. Now, I have to be honest, I'm very ill-perceptive when I'm shopping. When I'm shopping with my wife, I'm trying to keep up with her and trying to rein her in, particularly now that we have a child, because she's got a problem. She's an addict when it comes to kid clothes. She can't help herself. We have kid clothes coming out our ears. It's like in every room we got piles of kids' clothes that still have the tags on them. And she'll be like, oh my God, look at that. Look, that is just the craziest dinosaur shirt. Let's get it for Hank. So even if she's not buying, she's always looking. So we'll be at a place like Walmart and we always go to the baby section or the kids section. And she is, she's also on these mom groups on social media. And she was talking to me December. January, see this baby formula shortage? And I was like, oh, she's like, watch, next time we go to Walmart, wait, look how sparse it is. And we at that point weren't using baby formula, so it was sort of irrelevant to us. But she was telling me that in January. And then I look back, there were reports in media outlets in January about this as well. And Biden claimed today, it was just is unbelievable. I'll show you the clip here later. He was asked about it, and he was like, we acted early on this. Really? You acted early? You didn't do shit. We talked to people early. It's like, dude, you didn't talk to people until April. He claims that he heard about the problem in April. That's 4 months too late. Acted early. And then he's like, no one could have predicted that shutting down this one plant in Abbott would have had such a crisis. And then the person asks and says, isn't that what the producers were telling you, that it would result in a crisis? And he says, that's what they were saying, but not me. Oh, makes sense. You think Destiny would be interested in debating me on the excising conservatives from the U.S. thing? Would I do it? Hell yeah. Was he want to do it tonight? Sure, I'm in. I'll have to move from Twitch. Tell him to message me. He knows where I'm at. I don't think... Are you serious? I don't think so. Did he mention that? Yeah. Sure, I would debate him on the need to excise conservatives from the U.S. I kind of heard a little of what he said in response to it. Where he was like, I was just talking about DACA. No. Maybe, but I don't think so. The clip I saw, he was talking about all conservatives, it seemed. Saying violence was justified. Not just those that wanted DACA rescinded, but I'm more than willing to have that debate if he wants. He could defend his use of violence. I saw him talking to Pisco about it today a little, because someone sent me a clip where my name got brought up. Because Pisco told Destiny. I saw this clip on Rob's show. Look, here's the thing. It's actually a complicated philosophical position to have this debate. I deplore all political violence. I've been consistent on that. But there's a question, when does political violence become, or when does violence become not political violence? Like, for example, I might say political violence is any violence that's intended to pass an agenda or a political ideology. But let's say that I say there's a question of, should I use violence against someone who's up there saying, I'm for Antifa? No. But what if Antifa is breaking down my door to attack me? Well, that's different. That's self-defense then. I'm literally defending myself against violence. Should use violence if someone's considering passing legislation to make certain firearms illegal? No, of course not. But what if they're breaking into your house, taking your guns, and trying to load you onto take you to prison? That's a different calculus. My gut still says no, that you wouldn't engage in violence there. But that's no longer political violence. That's a question of when is self-defense justified if you're being directly harmed. So that's where Destiny says. He says, well, with DACA, if you're removing people that through no fault of their own are in this country, they have the right to defend themselves with violence if someone breaks into their home to remove them from the country. It's a different conversation. It becomes complicated because then the question is, well, what's the limit to that? What if I didn't pay my mortgage, but I feel that the mortgage was fraudulent? I feel the bank screwed me over. This happened to a lot of farmers, for example. Are they allowed to use lethal force when the sheriff comes to remove them from the property? So he said you could kill people that are anti-Obamacare. I don't know. I didn't see that clip, but anywho, let's talk about the Sussman Trial, right? Let's give a quick rundown of the Sussman Trial. Now, I have to plead it. Unfortunately, this used to be the type of thing before I was a father and before I was working ridiculous hours, I would sit down and watch the entire trial. And I have many blog posts when I did just that, watched trials, read the Mueller report, went through it painstakingly and things like that. I don't have that time anymore. If people would send me hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to stream, then I would have that time. But I'm probably not worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, let's be honest. And who the hell has money at this point anyway? So you get this version of Rob. But in general, here's what the trial was about. Sussman was a lawyer I believe he was a lawyer for Perkins Coie. He was paid by the Hillary camp. He worked with a guy named Rodney Jaffe, which we'll talk about later, to basically their agenda was to come up with evidence that Trump was colluding with Russia and basically fabricate the Trump-Russia collusion story, then send it to the media and send it to investigators in order to smear Trump to help Hillary win and to help discredit Trump after the election. That was the intent. This trial specifically was on an issue regarding the Alfa Bank story. For people that don't remember the Alfa Bank story, basically in a nutshell, you don't have to dig too deep into this one. It was a completely fabricated story that said that in Trump Tower, there were pings coming off the server connecting to this Russian bank, Alfa Bank. And it was very shady, and Hillary was tweeting about it, and I forget the guy's name, but you could still see his tweet. It might be Baker, that it works at Twitter now, was tweeting out about how it was suspect, that maybe there was some sort of connection and things like that. And so there was an FBI investigation into the Trump Alfa Bank thing. Ultimately, they determined that there was nothing to the story. Throughout this trial, we learned a lot. We learned that, one, Hillary Clinton personally authorized the release of this information. Second, that the FBI agents that were looking into it knew that the story was bullshit almost immediately. Third, and probably most importantly, that the higher-ups at the FBI were very interested in this story, even though the people in the FBI that were looking at it knew that it was bullshit. But it seemed like the higher-ups were very interested in pushing it anyways. That's sort of the gist of what happened there. Sussman, the person who was on trial for lying to the FBI because allegedly Durham found that the FBI asked Sussman, "Are you working for anyone?" So Sussman takes the evidence to the FBI, evidence that they fabricated that was bullshit. But the FBI asks, "Are you working for anyone?" And Sussman's like, "No." But he was working with the Hillary camp. And then people at the FBI testified, had we known, that changes our calculus of how we view this evidence. Because it would go from evidence brought by an objective, uninterested party versus evidence brought by someone's enemy. So that's what the trial was, lying to the FBI. Sussman lied to the FBI. And it was proven quite conclusively through emails and other things that Sussman did lie. He did lie to the FBI. James Baker, who's now at Twitter, who's a former FBI agent, testified in the trial, which I'll show you proof, that, he directly asked Sussman, "Are you here at the behest of a client?" And Sussman said no. Now, I did a video on this earlier today, and one of the comments on the video was, Sussman didn't lie to the FBI, he just failed to disclose. That's bullshit. Failing to disclose would mean he just never mentioned it. Being asked point blank, "Are you here at the behest of someone? Are you being paid by someone to be here and saying, no, that's a lie? That's not failure to disclose. He could have said, I'm not willing to disclose that information. That would be failure to disclose. Saying no is a lie. No, I didn't see Tim Pool interview Straka. I kind of followed the Brendan Straka case a little, but I didn't see the Pool interview of him, no. DNS queries is what it was specifically. So I have to complain. I have to claim like illiteracy when it comes to technology and stuff like that. So I try to view the case as simplistically as I can until it's important to go into it more. So that's the gist of the case. Sussman was found not guilty. So just a couple other things that you need to know. The judge was an Obama-appointed judge who apparently has some kind of shady seeming connections to sort of Democrats. Beyond that, 3 of the jurors were Clinton donors, Democrat donors. One of the jurors, and this is the most incredible. Man, this guy Sussman's on trial. Sussman's daughter's on a rowing team. One of the jurors also has a daughter on that same rowing team. So I just picture it like I played football. I had like 25 people that were on the football team. I knew probably 14 of their parents, of the people I played with. And then the rest of them, I didn't know them personally, but I could point them out because they were baking cookies for, bake sales and stuff like that to help the football team. So that's a connection. That's incredible that person was allowed in the jury. But in D.C., a place that almost everyone that lives there is a Democrat, all the time you see, they go after conservatives and people that are seemingly anti-establishment as hard as possible, these juries, and they almost never convict anyone that's a Democrat, right? Jay, thanks so much for the super chat. He says, have a beer on me. Sussman is innocent. Proves FBI is complicit. ATS misses you, fool. Oh, Jay, come on, you bastard. You're giving away my spiel here. Yeah, right? That's what we're going to get. Vita, we're getting there. I don't know that that's a mistake by Durham. So I'm going to get in depth with what I think this verdict means in a way differently than almost anyone you've heard. And that's why you're here, right? Sure, the jury was corrupt. You get that from everyone. Sure, Sussman lied. You get that from everyone, right? Sure, Durham's probably not going to convict anyone of consequence. Yep, that's what I've been saying. Pretty much, you can get that from anyone. But I'm going to talk to you in a way that very few people have. Now, there's some people giving it away here in the chat, but I think I could go a little further with this on my analysis. So what happened is there's a victory lap being taken by the media, by the Democrats, by former FBI agents like Peter Strzok, etc. They're sort of taking this victory lap and they're saying, see, this proves that there was nothing corrupt here. That it proves it. See? He's found innocent. That's not what it proves. Being found innocent doesn't prove that he didn't lie. In fact, one of the jurors allegedly said afterwards, well, there's more important things than lying to the FBI. I wonder what that juror thought of the investigation into Flynn, Papadopoulos, Roger Stone, the entire Mueller investigation, etc. Because that's all that yielded. It didn't actually prove the charge of colluding in an illegal way with Russia. None of that. They didn't find any of that. They tried to charge 13 Russian trolls that were posting ads on Pokemon Go on Facebook, and then they had to withdraw those charges because they didn't have evidence that they were working for the government of Russia. Then they charged some Trump-connected people with allegedly lying to the FBI. Interesting. And then they charged Manafort for failing to register as a foreign lobbyist when in 2013 he was working with the Podesta Group, the group founded by Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, lobbying at the behest of a Ukrainian president that allegedly was pro-Russian. Who was he lobbying? We don't know, but who was Secretary of State at the time that Podesta would have had access to? Anyways, don't think about that too hard, right? So funny how all of a sudden lying to the FBI is not a big deal, says a bunch of Democrat supporting jurors. Not a big deal. It was a big enough deal to raid Roger Stone's house after the FBI tipped off CNN to have some 17 agents with weapons drawn and pull him out in front of his wife in his underwear. Lying to the FBI was a big deal then, but not now. Not when it's someone connected to Hillary. Failing to register as a foreign lobbyist. Important when it was someone connected to Trump, but not when it's the Podesta group connected to Hillary. See? You see how it works? But you knew that. You knew the two-tiered justice system, the double standard. So you have all these people taking victory laps. All these Democrats. This proves there wasn't corruption. Does it? Is that what it proves? Now I'm going to say something that's not going to be popular with my audience, and it's something that I've said before, and I could prove it. I've said it in writings as far back as 2018, 2017, 2018. And there are people on here that are going to be like, what the fuck are you talking about? You're so wrong about this. But I'm going to say it anyways. All right? I don't know that what Hillary did here that people are talking about is that big of a deal. I don't really give a shit. I don't think Hillary is the big bad guy here. I basically expect any politician at that scale to be engaged in shitty disinformation, to be doing everything they can, reaching out to anyone who will bite, saying any fucking negative thing they can about their opponent. Some of it might be true. Some of it might be true but scandalous, like, oh, they're sleeping with this person or that person, which I really don't give a shit about. Some of it might be true but shady, like they got their hands on private emails or something like that. Some of it might just be false, like the Alfa Bank story. But they're peddling the bullshit to anyone who will report it. The media is more at fault for taking it and running with it, knowing it was coming from the Hillary camp and knowing they had no evidence of it and still running for it. But who's most at fault? Why is this probably the biggest political scandal in my lifetime, probably in the history of the country? What makes it so scandalous? It's not that Hillary did this. That's not what makes it scandalous. Someone running for president concocted a story and then fed that bullshit story to the FBI and the media, and they ran with it. Now, I'm not saying that it's not a crime in some ways, and I'm not saying that it's not unethical, and I'm not saying that Hillary shouldn't be excoriated for it and be investigated. I'm not saying all that. And lying to the FBI, that's right. It's the institution that's the problem. The problem is the FBI started investigating and spying on Trump based on this bullshit. That's the real problem. That's the scandal. That's the corruption. That to me is the far bigger story. Now, did Sussman lie to the FBI? Absolutely. It seems pretty blatant that he did. The evidence was overwhelming that he did. Should Sussman be charged with that? Yes. Should he get similar punishment to what Roger Stone got, to what they wanted to give Mike Flynn? Sure. Yeah. Agreed. Does the fact he was found not guilty prove a two-tier justice system? Yes, absolutely. But at the end of the day, is Sussman a big fish? No. If Sussman did what he did, lied to the FBI about this, but the FBI acted in a responsible way and said, these allegations are all bullshit. We think the threshold for investigating a candidate for president of the United States must be very high. This clearly doesn't even pass the beginning bar of that. We're just going to not investigate this matter. Would what Sussman have done been a big deal? No, it wouldn't have been. What makes it a big deal is the FBI ran with it. So I'm not saying it's okay to lie to the FBI. That's the precedent now that the Democrats are saying. He should have been charged. But that's like my concern of Sussman's like a 3 out of 10. My concern of the FBI is like a 10 out of 10. So now let's go back to what was said by a not guilty verdict in this trial. The Democrats are taking victory laps. Peter Strzok from the FBI, formerly of the FBI, taking victory laps. The media taking victory laps. By the way, the media didn't want to touch this trial. You couldn't find a peep about it. Find a mainstream source other than maybe Breitbart or Fox or something that even breathed a word about this trial. Let alone when we found out Hillary personally okayed the bullshit story. Go ahead, I challenge you. How many stories were in the mainstream press about this? But now, oh, he was acquitted. See, victory. Hillary did nothing wrong. No. The FBI did nothing wrong. No. That's not what it said. But it's funny now. Now they're coming out of the woodwork. But should they be celebrating? What does a not guilty verdict mean? Now, if you watched any of the trial, something that was sort of amazing, and someone mentioned this earlier, was they said, is the mistake Durham made that he made the FBI look like unwilling dupes? Like, oh, geez, we didn't know that this was coming from Hillary's camp. Had we known, we would have scrutinized it more. And we were lied to. We were lied to by Hillary's camp, by Sussman. It was very interesting to see if you could have took a step back and said, let's say that you were just totally objective and you didn't live through 4 years of the Trump-Russia collusion bullshit that our entire press was pushing and that our FBI was spying on Trump, et cetera, et cetera. If you didn't live through that and you just watched this trial and you asked yourself which side is defending the FBI and which side is attacking the FBI, something very interesting was going on. It was the Sussman side that was critical of the FBI, that was saying the FBI is being dishonest. We let them know. They knew what was going on. That's very interesting to me. Now, let me be clear. I'm burying the lead here a little bit. Let me be clear. I still believe there's a 95% chance that Durham never punishes anyone, gets any conviction of any substantive person. There'll be slaps on the wrist for peripheral people. Maybe a Sussman type person gets a slap on the wrist in the future. Maybe Rodney Jaffe or something like that. But you're not going to get big dogs at the FBI, and those are the ones that you need to be getting. You're not going to get them. But if you were going to get them, maybe, just maybe, the way this trial played out is an actual genius way to go about it. At least in the realm of public perception. Because if you believe that Sussman didn't lie to the FBI, which is what everyone's celebrating in the Democratic Party, what does that mean? Then who lied? If it wasn't Sussman, who lied? James Baker of the FBI and other FBI people are saying Sussman lied, and Sussman's saying, no, I didn't. That means the FBI is lying when they say that Sussman lied. That means that far from being that this shows that there was no corruption, what this verdict actually means is one of two things. One, that we just don't give a shit. Sure, he lied, but lying to the FBI is not important, so haha. If that's the case, then they're discredited even more with everything they did with the Trump periphery people. I don't want to hear them talk about, we got convictions, George Papadopoulos and Flynn and Stone. Or it means they believe Sussman. That's what all the media is suggesting. That's what all the left-wingers on Twitter are celebrating. And Manafort and Gates, right, you're right. Okay, if you believe Sussman, then you believe the FBI lied. Now, why would the FBI lie about that? Let's take a step back. I told you all, everyone knows that's followed me for a while, that I was on this website Above Top Secret. Sort of a blog. It started off as a conspiracy theory blog, but it did a lot of politics when I was on there. Just, you know. And I wrote this thread in October 23rd, I believe, of 2017, where I said, if the dossier was used to get FISA warrants to spy on people connected to the Trump campaign, that it's one of the biggest political scandals in the history of our country. Not only has that been proven to be true, it's actually far worse than even I analyzed there initially, because we found out so much more. They lied on the warrants. They violated the Woods procedures, etc., etc. In the context of writing that thread for Above Top Secret, there were left-wingers that were pushing back. And the first criticism of my thread was this. Well, that's a big if, Rob. That's a big if. If they used an unverified dossier sourced by Hillary's team, that would be a big deal. You have no proof that they used it. Why would they say that? Why was that a sticking point for them? How were they so certain? They were certain the FBI wouldn't do that. Why were they so certain? How was it that all these lefties that I was talking to were absolutely convinced the FBI would never use unverified opposition research in order to get a FISA warrant to spy on a political candidate's candidacy or campaign for president? Well, because TV told them to. That's part of it. Thank you, Jay. I was the smartest dummy on ATS. We now know they did exactly that. Comey admitted that it was unverified. We know it was unverified because most of the salacious things in the dossier were bullshit, which we later found out, so they never verified it if it ended up being untrue. And we know that they used it 4 times, and it was the bulk of their FISA warrant. We know that. All of that is known. So all those people that were saying the FBI would never do this, you want to know what the grounding of making the statement that the FBI would never do it? It is an implicit admission. I know the FBI wouldn't do that because it's so corrupt. That's what they were saying. It would be like if I said, oh, the FBI shot this kid at Ruby Ridge. They'd say, no, didn't happen, wouldn't happen. And the reason they're saying that is because it would be so heinous, they can't believe that this noble institution would do that. That's how they knew. The FBI wouldn't do that. And then, of course, what happened was once we found out the FBI did it, they were like, well, of course they did. Of course they did it. It was a good thing. So they changed their stance. Now the TV was telling them, well, okay, it happened, but for good reason. That's right, Vita, because it was so outrageous. They were like, that's a bold claim. It would be like someone asked me earlier, is it possible that this shooter in Texas was in contact with the FBI, that the FBI radicalized him? It's possible. I don't know. The FBI's done that sort of shit in the past. I personally haven't seen evidence to that, but it's possible. After the Whitmer thing, who could blame people for questioning this? The FBI radicalizing people intentionally. Maybe they radicalized him with the intent to bust him before he did something and they were too slow. I don't know. I haven't seen evidence of that. I'm just saying someone could entertain that possibility. I'm not going to begrudge them. But many people would say, that's ridiculous. No way. That is heinous to even think. The FBI wouldn't do something like that. Well, sure they would. But the reason you're saying they wouldn't is because you have faith in the institution and you realize that would be a really bad thing for them to do. So you just believe they wouldn't do it because it would be really bad. Same with them using unverified opposition research, to get a FISA warrant. No, that didn't happen. Bullshit. You have no evidence that it happened. It wouldn't happen. Because they're implicitly saying that would be so shady. It would be terrible. So I just don't believe. You need big evidence that the FBI would have done something like that. Okay, well, they did it. And then the stance changes to, well, it's not that big of a deal. Now, what's this have anything to do with the Sussman trial? Well, here's where I'm coming from. Why would the FBI lie about Sussman lying to them? That's what we're told to believe with this not guilty verdict. Either lying, yeah, Sussman lied to the FBI, but it's not that big of a deal. Or, no, Sussman did not lie to the FBI. And so when the FBI is testifying, yes, he did, they themselves are not being truthful. That's what we're being asked to believe. So if it's the latter, why would the FBI lie about that? Why wouldn't the FBI just come out and say, yeah, Sussman told us he was working for Hillary? Sure. And so what? Why wouldn't they say that? I mean, that's basically it. They wanted the investigation to look bad because they know it looks really fucking bad. Because then, if the FBI knew it was from Hillary, here's what we now know. If that's true, the FBI knew it was from Hillary. By the way, spoiler alert, Sussman lied and the FBI knew he was lying. They knew it was from Hillary. At least the top brass. They fucking knew. They just didn't give a shit. But if we accept the Democrats, Sussman didn't lie. He was found not guilty. That means the FBI lied. Why did they lie about Sussman telling them that he was working for Hillary? Well, here's what we would know then. This came from Hillary. The FBI knew it. The FBI knew it was bullshit, the ground level people. And yet still, the FBI top brass pushed a story they knew was bullshit that was concocted by the opposition for the person they were investigating and still pushed it. That looks pretty fucking bad, doesn't it? That looks pretty corrupt. And so they're like, well, had we known it came from Hillary, we would have scrutinized it more. Because they know how bad it looks. This came directly from Hillary. She signed off on it. It was bullshit. The agents that were looking into it were like, whoa, we want to see the source. The white paper on this looks like garbage. They testified that the top brass were like, no. This, for some reason, the top brass was very interested in proceeding with this. What do all those celebrating really get out of a not guilty verdict? To me, what they get is more evidence the FBI is corrupt and lied, which to me is far bigger of a story than Sussman. That's not to say that Sussman shouldn't have been found guilty. He should have been. Maybe, and again, let me preface this, 95% chance that Durham's not going to get anyone significant on any punishment. But this could be some well thought out plan. We'll charge Sussman, sort of the lowest guy in the totem pole, with a crime that's not that big of a deal. At least it used to not be, lying to the FBI. That will force Sussman, the Hillary clamp, and all of these people to say, no, the FBI knew about all this. They knew. And the media will say, see, Sussman was telling the truth. And Democrats will say, see, Sussman was telling the truth. And the FBI will be forced to come out and say, no, we think Sussman lied. We think these Hillary people lied to us. And that's a big deal. They shouldn't lie to us because if we had known that it was from Hillary's team, that would have been a big deal. That's implicitly what they're saying. Why the lie matters. It was material. It would have affected how they viewed the information, knowing where the source came from. Those two admissions, Democrats in the Hillary camp, thank you so much, Perchual. What this trial did, not only did it out a bunch of stuff that we were pretty sure of, but now it's on record that Hillary knew, she ordered it to be disseminated, that it was a bullshit story, that the FBI agents on the ground looking at it thought it was a bullshit story, and that the top brass wanted it pushed anyways. That's all out in the public now. That's huge. That's important. Now, we'll see how much of that matriculates to the average independent voter or moderate voter or Democrat voter, because they're still going to be listening to the fucking mainstream media that's not going to tell them any of this. But it's out there. You could look at it yourself. We'll look at some of that coming up. So that's the first thing it did. Second thing it did was it forced Democrats and Hillary-connected people to say, basically the FBI's lying, and we told them that this came from us. Okay? And third, it forced the FBI to say, had we known this came from Hillary, we would have been more scrutinizing in using this evidence. Now that's pretty shrewd if Durham's plan was to get those admissions. And say, okay, fair enough. Now, I still think he tried to get Sussman. I do think that about Durham. He tried to get Sussman convicted. But I don't think that's big on my agenda, and maybe not on his. Now maybe he proceeds to go on to Igor Dushenko and Rodney Jaffe. And with Dushenko, who was a known Russian spy that was the primary subsource for the Steele dossier, maybe in that trial, he forces Dushenko's team to be saying, the FBI knew that I was the subsource. They knew. Maybe the FBI's like, no, had we known. And maybe the same happens with Rodney Jaffe. Jaffe's like, the FBI knew what we were doing. They knew. And the FBI's like, no, had we known. And then if he was going to go after the FBI, he now has the case to make to be like, even the Hillary people said you knew. You admitted that had you known, it would be a big deal. And now here's more evidence that you knew. Your own admission was, had you known, you would have proceeded differently. So that implies you didn't know, which we think is lying to us as investigators. Now we're going to start there. Now, Kinj is probably right. Sorry, your name's a weird color for me. Kinj is probably right. Probably nothing will come of this. I'm 95% certain of that. Why? Because it never does. Because the establishment protects themselves, and probably at the end of the day, even if Durham wants to do right, that's going to be the net result. It's just the corruption's so deep, and maybe Durham's in on it and he's there to wrinkle now. That could very well be the case. I don't know. I'm just saying, where we stand right now, the victory lap that Democrats are taking, I don't think it means what they think it means. I think that if they think Sussman was telling the truth, that means the FBI was lying. Am I scared so openly to speak out about Hillary like this? No, because I don't have influence. I have 50 people watching. Let's go to, so the best person that I've seen on this is a person by the name of Technofog on Twitter, who is a lawyer that's anonymous, but that's been following the trial and doing write-ups on Substack. Day 3 of the Sussman Trial. Baker was an FBI agent who now's on Twitter's board. Isn't that funny? Oh, that revolving door. Here's what Baker testified to. Ready? Quote, Michael started to explain why he was there. He said he was not appearing before me on behalf of any particular client, and that he had some information that was of concern relating to an apparent surreptitious communications channel between something called Alfa Bank. What that statement means is, he lied and said, I'm just here. I accidentally stumbled on this information and I thought the FBI would be interested. When in reality, he was paid to fish for this information, to create a false story, and then go to the FBI with it from Hillary Clinton herself. That means that either Sussman's lying, or James Baker, formerly of the FBI, now at Twitter, was lying. One of them has to be lying. Sussman's claims, no, I didn't say that. Baker says, yes, you did. One of them's lying. Yeah, in reality, it's both are lying. The FBI knew. Let's take for a second the FBI's claims at face value. Like they just didn't know. How would you not know that a lawyer that you know works for the law firm that has been working for the DNC and the Hillary clamp, it never crossed your mind when they came to you with information critical of Hillary's opponent that maybe, just maybe, they were working for it? Never even crossed your mind. It'd be like if Roger Stone approached the FBI tomorrow and said, I have information critical of Joe Biden and that there was malfeasance in the 2020 election. And they said, are you working for anyone? Nope. You don't think it would cross the FBI? Geez, we know you're a big ally of Donald Trump. Well, but he said he's not working for anyone. Okay. I surreptitiously, I can't pronounce that word, stumbled upon this evidence. Kinji says, the amazing part is Durham knew Sussman created the evidence and the narrative with hired help. Gave it to the FBI, but that's not lying or fraud. And the NSA knew, right? Yeah, Jimmy Dore has been covering this. By the way, people tweet to Jimmy Dore. Get me on his show. I'd love to talk about this and other the war in Ukraine and things like that. I would love to talk to Jimmy. Despite I disagree with a lot of his politics, I like him. So what's the celebration here again for the Democrats? Great. A DC jury doesn't give a shit, and basically they're like, we don't care if this dude lied or not. It was going after Trump, and Trump's bad. Great. The bigger story that you're celebrating is, okay, so then the FBI lied? Yeah, I know. I've talked to Hinkle. I'll have to get in touch with Hinkle and tell him to put in a word for me at Jimmy Dore. Put the link to this. Now, everyone admits that the Alfa Bank story was garbage. The agents on the ground knew it was garbage. So in this day of the trial from May 24th, Sussman Trial, fingers pointed at FBI leadership. It was a long day of travel, but, was it? Okay, yeah. Long day of travel. This morning started with testimony from Bill Priestep, who in September 2016 was the FBI's Assistant Director of Counterintelligence. Notice, by the way, that you keep seeing the same names in all of the Hillary investigation and the Trump investigation. And this was something that I had talked about before and many other people had talked about. It was this inner circle of like 8 to 12 people that were involved in both of these. Even Comey's admitted that. You're going to see the names Priestep, you're going to see Strzok, you're going to see Page, you're going to see Baker, you're going to see McCabe, you're going to see Comey, you're going to see Rosenstein. These names are going to appear over and over again. What are the chances that the exact same team that was working on the Hillary Clinton investigation was also working on the Trump investigation? And what are the chances that they went as easy as possible against Hillary Clinton and as hard as possible against Donald Trump? Interesting, right? Let's keep going. And they're all higher ups, too. His testimony was expected even before the witness lists were put out. Back in January, we observed that Priestep had testified before a grand jury. In fact, Priestep himself stated today that he testified before the grand jury in June of 2021. A little bit of background on Priestep before we begin. He approved the opening of Crossfire Hurricane and decided against defensive briefings being provided to the Trump campaign. Remember, this is a huge point of the whole Russia thing. Well, let's pause here. So the guy that opened, thank you so much, Tainted Holy. I really appreciate the sub. I really do. So the guy that's responsible for opening Crossfire Hurricane, which the allegations were that Russians were trying to infiltrate, thanks so much for the follow, Russians were trying to infiltrate a campaign for presidency of the United States. And yet, for some reason, the FBI never alerted that campaign. And you might say, well, they wanted to make sure that the people in that campaign weren't working with the Russians. Okay. Remember when a driver for Dianne Feinstein for like 20-something years, we found out that was her driver was actually an agent, a spy from China? Remember that? Imagine instead of telling Feinstein that, which they immediately did when they found out, imagine if they said, we're not going to say a word. We're going to wiretap her. We're going to send spies. We're going to leak to the press. We're going to start an investigation to make sure she's not actively working with the Chinese. Imagine that. How do you think that would have played with the Democrats? How do you think that would have played with the media? No, what they did with her was they immediately approached her and said, my God, the Chinese are trying to infiltrate your group here. Oh, okay. In fact, that's what they do almost every time. But not with Trump. With Trump, they were like, we're going to sit on our hat and not tell this campaign that those dastardly Russians are trying to infiltrate their campaign. Why wouldn't you go to the head of the campaign and say, hey, just to let you know, be careful. There could be people around you that are being influenced by Russian spies. But nope, they decided not to do that. Interesting choice, don't you think? I wonder why. Maybe they'd already made up their mind that they were trying to bring Trump down. Anyways, moving on. He was Peter Strzok's supervisor and also approved the use of all confidential human sources against the Trump campaign. Stefan Halper with George Papadopoulos, Azra Turk, who was a code name for the woman that they tried to honeypot Papadopoulos with, etc. Last week, the former FBI General Counsel James Baker testified that he spoke with Priestep about his meeting with Sussman and, quote, repeated to Mr. Priestep that Michael had said he was not there on behalf of a particular client and that he was there as a citizen, essentially as a human source of information, a confidential source. That is a quote from FBI agent Baker. So Baker lied or Sussman lied? At the trial today, Priestep was presented with notes he took after the meeting with Baker. Those notes reflected that conversation with Baker, stating Sussman said not doing this for any client. Priestep also said that the Alfa Bank Trump Organization investigation ultimately fell under his control. Getting to the issue of materiality, Priestep was then asked about why the motivations of the sources matter to the FBI. So it's not just enough to prove that Sussman lied, but you also have to prove that that lie affected that it was material. It had some sort of effect. So that's what the prosecution's going to ask Priestep, the guy who was in charge of the investigation. Question, and this is quotes from the trial. Question, based on your experience, if Mr. Sussman had brought these allegations to the FBI on the behalf of the Hillary Clinton campaign, would that have mattered to the FBI? Priestep says, again, anybody bringing information to the FBI, we're interested. The FBI is interested in knowing the motivation of the person providing the information. Here we go. Just like I said, okay, here's the guy in charge of the investigation at the FBI admitting, of course we want to know who the information's coming from. Of course we want to know what their motivation is. So he's answering, yes, it would matter who brought these allegations. On cross-examination, Priestep admitted that he couldn't recall the meeting with Baker or why he wrote in his notes that Sussman wasn't there on behalf of a client. After approximately 6 years, his memory was fuzzy. Question, do you remember anything more about why you wrote that down? Priestep, I do not. Question, you don't remember anything about the context in which you said that was said to you? Priestep, I do not. To summarize, the defense theory of this case, it's that Sussman was there to help the FBI and he supposedly acted against his client's interest by stopping a New York Times article on the Alfa Bank allegations from being published. On that topic, Priestep discussed how the FBI might ask a newspaper to not run a story. Question, as a general matter, if the FBI knew that a newspaper story was coming out about a threat from a nation state, and there are ever occasions in which you would, at the FBI, ask a newspaper to hold off on running that story, Priestep says yes. Question, okay, and that's because there are situations in which the FBI would want to have the chance to investigate before the story came out, correct? Priestep says yes. If the FBI thought, let's say, that publicly revealing a certain matter could potentially negatively impact not just things that the FBI was doing, but potentially negatively impact the country, we'd want to have a conversation about it. Then there's this blockbuster of a comment. Counsel for Sussman that's the defense lawyer for Sussman, presented Priestep with messages from the FBI's internal messaging system, in which Priestep discussed how the FBI's leadership, Comey, McCabe, and all, were excited about pursuing the Alfa Bank Trump allegations. Now, this is the defense attorney speaking for Sussman. Again, and that's what I said, what's very funny is if you saw any parts of this trial, or if you read any of the transcripts or saw any of the evidence, the defense is impugning the FBI. That's what they're doing. So from the defense, question, okay, so this link is a chain between Joe, I can never pronounce his right, Pientka, we'll just say Pentka, who you mentioned a moment ago is the Washington field agent, and Curtis Hyde, the Chicago agent you mentioned. And this says, quote, people on the 7th floor, to include director, are fired up about this server. The 7th floor is basically the highest level of the FBI. So including Comey. Now sitting here, do you remember, well, presumably you've not seen this before. He says no. In other words, the top brass at the FBI was very excited to pursue these charges. We'll continue. The influence that FBI leadership, Comey and McCabe, had on the investigations related to Trump-Russian accusations is notable, but not an exception. This is the first time we have heard the Alfa Bank hoax was pushed by FBI leadership. However, this fits their broader pattern. Recall that the statement of the FBI agent William Barnett. He was part of the FBI's investigation of General Flynn and decided it should be closed down. The FBI senior officials who ran in the investigation from the top down called the shots. Now, if you remember, this was something that I had talked about, many people were talking about in the Flynn trial. That originally, the FBI interviewed Flynn and then came to the conclusion he did not commit a crime and closed the book. It was only later that top brass and then Mueller later said, nope, we've changed our mind. We're going to charge him. So let's see what this person says. There was another reorganization of Crossfire hurricane investigation after the interview of Flynn. Strzok was supervising the Razor investigation along with Redacted and program manager Redacted. The Department of Justice and FBI headquarters were having meetings concerning Razor investigation, which neither Barnett nor any other line agents, the people that were on the ground investigating, were invited to attend. The Razor investigation was, quote, top down, meaning direction concerning the investigation was coming from senior officials. The FBI was reacting to articles reported in the news, most notably an article written by Ignatius, who was writing, I believe, for Yahoo News, concerning blank, involving Flynn to a Russian ambassador. Or I'm sorry, Ignatius, I don't think was Yahoo News. Anyways, after the article by Ignatius, the investigative tempo increased with the issuance of baseline SNLs and the aforementioned interview of Flynn. In other words, the top brass was taking shitty mainstream media reporters that were reporting bullshit and using that as their excuse to go after Trump-connected people. So there's a pattern here. All of these shitty investigations and these shitty allegations were coming from the top. Wasn't low-level people making bumbling mistakes. Testimony from... We'll keep going here. We don't got much longer. Testimony from FBI agent Ryan Gaynor. Back in 2006, Agent Gaynor was the FBI's counterintelligence division units chief in D.C. He learned of the Alfa Bank allegations in September 23, 2016, during a briefing led by the FBI's Chicago field office. Gaynor reported to the supervisor, Special Agent Joe Pientka, who, along with Strzok, interviewed General Flynn and volunteered to help work on the case. This is how he describes some of the steps the FBI took in its Alfa Bank investigation. So let's go through this. Question: what was the status of the FBI's investigative efforts at the time you met with Mr. Moffa? In other words, what had FBI Chicago done? His response: so at that point, the FBI had initiated the investigation in the Chicago field offices. The initial allegation had been reviewed by our ECOL, which is European Cyber Operations Unit, and they had produced an analysis of our findings related to the allegation. And the field office had also reached out to the first company, Central Dynamics, to initiate an effort to gather logs, additional logs. I believe they also potentially collected initial logs related to a spam filter system in place by Barracuda for the company. So by the time that Gaynor's talking to other field offices, the Chicago field office had already done a considerable amount of work, is what that's saying. As to the accuracy of the information and accusation provided by Sussman, one investigating agent found it to be bullshit. This is Gaynor testifying again. Ready? Additionally, the special agent in Chicago, Allison Sands, conducted a review of the data herself and made determinations related to the allegation that the Tor node that was mentioned within the allegation did not pass analytical mustard. It didn't have merit. In other words, the agent that was investigating knew that it was bullshit from the get-go. And yet the top brass was very excited in pursuing it. Isn't that strange? Later, she would make other analysis, including to the Central Dynamic logs themselves did not show a covert communication system. Later, she would make another analysis, including the Central Dynamics logs themselves did not show a covert communication system. We also initiated a liaison contact with Mandiant, and through that liaison contact, we determined that they had independently come to the conclusion that the allegation lacked merit as well. Geez, everyone looking into this was like, this is totally bogus. It's bogus. And yet, the top of the FBI demanded the Comeys, the Strzoks, the McCabe's. They demanded, they were thrilled that the investigation go forward. In fact, the Chicago office itself was curious about the source of Sussman's data. Agent Curtis Hyde emailed. Now, moving to the second sentence of Mr. Hayday's email, it says, quote, we really want to interview the source of all this information. Any way we can track down who this guy is and how we're getting this info. Now, what we know is Rodney Jaffe was this tech expert who was being paid to do sort of kind of routine maintenance type stuff on Trump Tower, on Trump's personal apartment, on a medical server, and in the office of the presidency. So he was the source. He was coming up with this bullshit. We know it was bullshit. And he was being paid by the Hillary team and actually thought that he was going to get a position when Hillary became president for this. So here's the FBI saying, that's looking at it in Chicago going, this whole story looks like bullshit. We'd really like to talk to the guy who's the source. In other words, the fact that this speaks to materiality. Sussman lying and saying, there is no source. I just stumbled upon this information, significantly affects what's going on, because these FBI agents are like, this looks like garbage. We'd really like to see who's behind this. That's what they're saying. That's what the field agents investigating are saying. So that means that Sussman's lie that, I just stumbled on this information. I'm not working for anyone in particular. I'm just a whistleblower. The supervisor in Chicago agreed. Okay, I agree with Curtis, he said. An interview with the source of the info would be the logical step in this, as well as any investigation. It may allow us to understand the what and the why of the white paper. So what the hell is going on with this paper that seems like bullshit, and why? Why are we getting this? The supervisor in Chicago agreed. Yes, we would like to know. That speaks to materiality. So Baker has said definitively, the FBI has definitively said, Sussman lied. He said that he didn't have a client. He was there on his own. And now we have all of these FBI agents going, it looked like bullshit to us, and we wanted to know where it was coming from, because that would have helped us impact what exactly we're looking at here. And yet he was still found not guilty. So that means they think the FBI is lying, apparently. Let's finish this up. Whether or not the Chicago team would have access to the source of the Alfa Bank data was discussed, but not approved by FBI headquarters. Okay, what is it that you say in response to Mr. Weiserbecky and Mr. Hyde's emails? And this is Agent Grayson again. Got it, and being discussed at headquarters. Before we make any decision on that front, we will need to know what we can learn from the logs and what we have obtained regarding the nature of the actual activity between Alfa Bank and the domain server. In other words, FBI headquarters was discussing that their agents were saying, this looks like bullshit. We would like to know where it's coming from. And this guy's like, okay, yeah, we're discussing it here. The top brass is discussing it at FBI headquarters. Yeah, you're right. Friday Living puts, they knew it was lies. DNS traffic collected at critical points between suspect organization. We cannot technically make any claims that would fly public scrutiny. They knew. They knew it was bullshit all along. This testimony is saying they knew it was bullshit. The agents on the field were like, we want to know where this is coming from. But for some reason, the top brass was like, no, keep pursuing. Wonder why. Then there's the issue of another confidential human source. The Chicago field office was informed that the Alfa Bank allegations had been provided to various media outlets. This source was not Mr. Sussman. So Grayson says, quote, so the FBI, through our Chicago field office, received confidential human source reporting that indicated that the confidential human source believed that the allegation had merit, and that this particular story allegation had been provided to media outlets. Question. So the source told the FBI this allegation had been given to media outlets? Answer. They did. Question. And was this confidential human source, to your knowledge, was not Mr. Sussman? Is that correct? To the best of my knowledge, it was not Mr. Sussman. That means that there was someone else coming to them saying, yeah, I believe this story's true. And by the way, the media has this story now. We continue. This CHS was evaluated by the Chicago field office and, quote, they thought that the CHS was wrong. They had several reasons for that assessment, including the fact that the source, quote, made several technical assertions that didn't pass analytical merit. In other words, the other source, whom we suspect was Rodney Jaffe, lied. Right, the very guy also working with the Hillary Clinton campaign that was the other source, most likely, was lying when he said, nope, it looks legit. Here's a tech expert lying that it looks legit. It continues, this would be why he was terminated as a CH confidential human source. There's also the possibility that the confidential human source is in the media, as observed by the talented Fool Nelson. During the break, there was discussion of a sealed filing regarding Agent Gaynor's status. So what's that testimony show us? One, that James Baker from the FBI said that Sussman lied. Second, admissions from Bill Priestap, the guy in charge of the investigation. Had we known that this was coming from Hillary, or we wanted to know where it was coming from because that would affect. The field agents saying we knew it was bullshit from the get-go. It didn't pass analytical merit. An admission from the field agents that the top brass was still interested in pushing it. Field agents saying they wanted to see where the information was coming from, in other words, the Hillary camp, so they could get the motivation of why they were getting it. And the fact that it was leaked to the media. This is damning. If you read all of this and you go, but we think Sussman was telling the truth. Okay. Then the FBI lied. How could anyone look at these facts and think that this isn't horribly corrupt? And I can also show you, if you want, the allegations that Hillary Clinton, or the testimony from Robbie Mook that Hillary Clinton personally okayed this. Now, let's wrap this all up in a tidy bow. Is it likely that Durham's not going to get any big fish, particularly from the FBI? Yes. 95% likely. Is the fact that a DC jury let Sussman off the hook ridiculous? Yes. Does it prove what the people strutting around like Peter Strzok and all these Democrats, oh yeah, see, nothing to see here. I saw people literally say that this not guilty verdict proves that Trump colluded with Russia. That's how fucking dumb people are. But does it prove it? No. If anything, it makes the case even stronger that the FBI was lying about this, and that the top brass was pushing a known bullshit story to go after Trump. Just like they would later with Papadopoulos, just like they would with Carter Page. Remember, this is the same people at the FBI that not only let Hillary get away with having a server in an improper location, but allowed her team to delete subpoenaed evidence. The same FBI people, same handful of people at the top, allowed Hillary's team to delete subpoenaed evidence, allowed her team to lie, which they did several times, to FBI agents, as I proved several times. Cheryl Mills and Huma Abedin, based on emails that had been released, lied to the FBI when they said they had no knowledge of Hillary's server until after her tenure of Secretary of State, and yet emails of them show them discussing the server previous to that. So they lied to the FBI. We know that FBI agents said through their 302s that they thought it defied credulity that Hillary Clinton thought that the C at the top of documents meant alphabetical order. In other words, she lied. FBI agents thought. They got away with that. Those same FBI agents, when presented with a bunch of obvious bullshit about Trump-Russia collusion, were like, yeah, fuck it, run with it. Go ahead. Oh, it's being blasted in the media. Hillary Clinton's personally tweeting it out. That's cool. Run with it. That's what this shows. The last thing I'll say is, even though I think there's a 95% chance, it could be, if you were looking to go after the right people, the people at the FBI, that this was sort of a brilliant strategy, the way that Durham approached it. Force the Hillary people to impugn the FBI and force the FBI people to say, oh, it would absolutely have been a big deal if this... Look at just in this prosecute, look at what we just went over. So the FBI is not looking, we know, they're not trying to bring down the Hillary people. They don't want that. But at the same time, they have to defend themselves. So they're put in this awkward position where they have to, in the name of just looking at today's news, what's going on in the trial, they have to say things that they think will benefit themselves. And so they end up saying things like, well, the head brass knew. We knew at the bottom line it was bullshit, but the brass, they were interested in pushing it forward. Seems innocuous as you're testifying to that, if you're Bill Priestep, if you're James Baker. But then when viewed outside with the grander scheme, it's like, okay, what's the story that's being painted here? Hillary people saying they knew it came from us. FBI admitting if we knew it came from them, the line agents that thought it was bullshit wanted to know that would have affected things. Them saying the top brass were the ones pushing it. All of that came out. So if later they decide to go after people with the top brass and they say, we didn't know, we weren't involved in this. Bullshit. That's not what all these FBI agents testified in that first trial. That's not what they said. They said you absolutely knew. They presented evidence to suggest that. So in that sense, it could be a brilliant strategy. Now, the black-pilled me says, yeah, I know that's not the case. Maybe it just worked out that way. They're not going to get anyone at the FBI. But it's out there. It's more evidence that's out there publicly. And someone said earlier, Omnilux said, the average person doesn't care or understand. Right. That's why I tried to make it as simple as possible. So when you're going through and reading all that, it sounds very confusing. Story's quite simple. Alfa Bank story was bullshit. It was concocted by people that Hillary Clinton was paying for. They were improperly using their station to get data that they were then misleading people that data and misrepresenting it, that data proved that Trump was colluding with Russia. This was a story. Hillary's team concocted a bullshit story about Trump colluding with Russia. They then took it to the media and took it to the FBI, who took the fucking bait because they wanted to. The average people at the FBI knew that the story was bullshit, but the top brass at the FBI said, we don't care, push it anyways. That's it. That's the story. All in black and white. And Democrats are running around cheering because a DC jury let Sussman off the hook for lying to the FBI. I saw people saying today, there are people in solitary confinement that were not even accused of committing violence on January 6th that are still in solitary confinement in DC. Yep. Remember? But that's not even an apples to apples comparison. Let's look at the trial of Roger Stone. Look at the treatment of Roger Stone compared to the treatment of Sussman. Roger Stone also tried in D.C. for the exact same crime, lying to the FBI. They were seeking 7 to 9 years for Roger Stone for the same crime that Sussman. 7 to 9 years. Bill Barr stepped in. Old big balls Bill Barr. He came swinging into town and all the QAnon people were like, woo, here we go. Here comes Bill Barr. And Bill Barr comes in and he's like, hey, 7 to 9 years for lying to investigators. That's bullshit. We're going to recommend 3 to 4 or 1 to 2. And everyone was like, yeah, we did it. Finally. Finally, people that are fighting the establishment get a victory. They're only going to get 1 or 2 years in jail instead of 7 to 9. Woo! They're high-fiving each other. We did it. What a victory. Light a cigar up tonight, boys. We did it. We finally won one. Oh, meanwhile, McCabe also lied to investigators. What did Bill Barr recommend for him? For years served for him? Oh, 0. 0. That's what Bill Barr recommended for him. 0 years for lying to investigators. Which it was admitted that he did. It was definitively proved. 0 years for him. Roger Stone gets several years. Get him, Bill Barr. There you go. Draining the swamp, buddy. Woo! That's how desperate conservatives were for a victory. There's this scene in the movie, Almost Heroes, that I like. Almost Heroes is one of Chris Farley's last movies. It's him and Matthew Perry, and they're racing against Lewis and Clark to get to sort of the ocean. And there's this scene where they are sleeping and a grizzly bear attacks a member of the camp, and it like rips him apart and drags him off. And they find his ear, and Matthew Perry's leading the expedition. The guy's friend that just got taken away by the grizzly bear is like, what will we do? Let's round up the men and go on a hunt for this bear and kill it. And Matthew Perry, who has no interest in this, he just wants to move on. He's like, actually, I was thinking that we would just move on and leave the ravages of old age finally take care of that bear. And the guy, he just looks at him, he goes, revenge is sweet. Like, that guy reminds me of conservatives. Finally, we'll get them. Ha ha ha. The revenge is sweetest when we only spend 2 years in prison for the same things that they could do over and over and get no time. Ha ha. Finally, a victory for us. I always think of that scene when I watch conservatives celebrating their Pyrrhic victories that they get. Bill Barr, I said it from the get-go. Go back and watch videos of me. I was talking about how Bill Barr was shit. He was part of the deep state, and all the QAnon morons were coming in here. Trust the plan, Rob. Trust the plan, dude. Trust the plan. Bill Barr's there. He's going to bring them all down for adrenochrome. They're sucking the adrenaline out of children and murdering them, and Bill Barr's about to bring down the hammer. Clearly, he can't charge Comey and McCabe for lying to investigator. He can't do that. He's too busy charging people for adrenochrome. So, yeah, he recommends a couple years for Roger Stone. Ridiculous. Bill Barr came out in an interview and said, I think Hillary committed sedition. Fuck you. Shut up and sit down, you piece of shit. If only you were in a position, Bill Barr, to do something. Oh, that's right, you were. You were the Attorney General. You were in a position to do something, and you did jack shit. So shut up and sit down. You don't get to come out now that the evidence is piling up that you were incompetent or corrupt yourself and say, oh, geez, look at that. You knew all of this as it was going on. Shut up. So as always, those that are fighting against disinformation get the most based take of all, right? Straight from the media that didn't cover the trial whatsoever and all the revelations we found, but are just saying not guilty, and now they're saying not guilty, that proves something. They are so, and it's a fundamental argument that I've had with so many people on the left particularly. They are so in love with trusting the experts, what they call experts, implicitly. They don't even have to think. Whatever the scientists tell me about COVID is true. Whatever CNN tells me about the news is true. Whatever the foreign policy experts say about, wars in areas is true. Whatever the FBI says is true. The same people that will say the whole system's systemically racist. Thanks, openly gay Texan. The same people that will say the whole system's systemically racist have the utmost trust and faith in accepting everything they say line by line. Because right now, those institutions are all parroting the talking points of the left. So, hey, if the FBI is on my side and it's going after the people I hate, they must always be telling the truth. Oh, if the jury's verdict is that my guy didn't do anything wrong, that's it. That proves nothing wrong was done. What's up? Sounds like Joe Biden's your father. Does it? Does it sound like it? Does my voice sound like Joe Biden's? Thanks. I don't have any stories about challenging tough dudes named Corn Pops or children feeling my leg hair, though. So, nor have I ever been paid huge sums of money to work in a country whose language I don't speak in a field that I have zero expertise in. So, nope, Joe Biden is not my father. I do live in rural Pennsylvania where Biden claims to come from. Yeah, Bill Barr was on Water's World. I'm sure he was. Oh, geez, what could we do about it? Oh, well, that's a shame. That's a shame. That trial just ended. Far less talk of that than the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. Even less talk of this Ghislaine Maxwell trial, right? So we'll see. Still blackpilled on anyone facing actual justice that engaged in a literal coup against the president for 4 years. Or the media that helped spread it, that knew it was bullshit, actually facing any consequence. But that's my feelings on what I saw at the trial. I have a video on it on YouTube. The lighting sucked. I apologize. I was at my work office, so there was nothing I could do. Oh, what's going on? My Twitter's blowing up here. Shit, it's humid here. I'm sweating like a pig. Doesn't help that I'm a fat bastard, but Jesus. And then when my hair gets a little sweaty, I look even more bald. Ooh. Good thing I'm married. Who gives a shit? But these leftists are so willing to accept the establishment narrative. As soon as the establishment goes against them, it'll be completely different. God forbid the FBI ever arrests someone they cheer for. They'd be like, this is ridiculous. Oh my goodness, corruption and blah, 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 blah. But right now, it's like, and you might say, but Rob, don't you do the same thing? No, because I'm actually looking at the facts of the case. I'm actually looking at everything that went down. I'm not just saying, well, the FBI told me X, therefore it's true. I actually tried to look into these matters, and I have been since 2016. Which is why I was writing about this extensively in 2017 and onward. And then when you get the odd lefty like someone like Pisco that will look into this stuff, he literally will simp for the establishment every time. Well, if, everything's apples to oranges, there's no two situations that are exactly alike. And you have to understand, deleting subpoenaed evidence when Hillary's team did it, it's a lot of resources to charge someone for a crime that's, not that big of a deal. Oh, yeah, they go hard as shit against those Trump people, though. Yep, throw them in solitary confinement. Yeah, they'll lie to the FBI. It's big. Well, Sussman lying to the FBI, it's not really a big deal. And, materiality and things like that, sometimes it's hard to prove these things to a jury. That's why they don't bring, these cases against them. Oh, yeah, those Republicans did that shit. The Trump supporters, yeah, go after all them. They did all that shit. Yep, they should be locked up. But even that level of discourse is better than 99% of the Democrats that don't know shit all about any of it and are just like, if anything corrupt happened, a judge would have said so. They would have. The FBI would have said so. The judge would have said so. They didn't say so, therefore no corruption. Same thing they say, by the way, when it comes to questions of election fraud and things like that. Did the judge say it occurred? No, didn't say it. Then no fraud. It's like, even if there wasn't fraud, which I'm on YouTube, so I'm not saying that there was fraud whatsoever. But even if there was, it's not as if, well, then the judge would have automatically said so. It's just such a stupid, lazy way. And it's so shallow. They're only doing it because it fits their narrative. Didn't have shit to say about this trial at all, until the not guilty verdict came, and then they go, see, I told you, nothing there. All right, let's see some other things to cover. That ads can be, we'll cover that in a second. I would be Greg Price. Thank you very much. Not the best video I've seen of this, but it is a video. Greg Price reminds us on. Anybody remember what was going on May 30th into the night of May 31st, 2020? Anyone? I probably talk about it more than any other streamer online. Anyone know what was happening May 30th, 31st, 2020? It was in our nation's capital. Clue. Anyone? What was happening? Interesting. Something was happening. What could it have been? Anyone have a guess? I talk about it an awful lot. It was riots, but not just any riots. A bunch of violent leftists stormed Washington, D.C., stormed the White House, with lethal weapons, Molotov cocktails, lit a guard station on fire with the agenda of physically harming and removing the President of the United States. The threat was so real that Donald Trump was moved to a bunker, to which the majority of leftists called Trump a bunker boy or bunker bitch. That was their response. Not, oh my God, it's an insurrection. They're trying to stop our democracy. They're trying to remove a duly elected president and stop the gears of democracy. That wasn't the Democrats and the media's response to that. Now, unlike the people January 6th, that what was the biggest weapon they found? A flagpole and zip ties? They actually had lethal weapons, Molotov cocktails. The only thing that prevented them was, unlike January 6th, where the only person we definitively know that wanted more security was Donald Trump, when it came to May 30th, 31st, everybody knew the left was going to get violent. So there was adequate protection. But that didn't stop them from trying, did it? They were trying to burn, I believe, 17 people protecting Secret Service agents and police were harmed by the people were hospitalized by the people trying to break into the White House. Yeah, weird. Didn't see it covered much. I forgot to, when I was doing that debate yesterday, I forgot to mention that it was the anniversary. Here's a little video for you. Oh, let me turn my headset on. Give me a second there. Sorry, over 50 Secret Service agents were injured. I'm sorry. Weird. Thank you, Shakespeare. I agree. I do need diet and exercise. And my guess is, Shakespeare, you need a sense of humility and someone that speaks truth in an articulate way. So I guess keep watching me. And I've lost weight, asshole. What is an insurrection? When do we worry about people trying to stop our democracy by harming elected officials to stop a transition of power? When do we do that? I remember the last guy that made fun of my appearance. He wasn't too shapely himself. You're a boxer coach. What do you think it gains? Are you a groiper as well? What do you think it gains? Are you the type of guy that goes up to people that are smoking and go, hey, do you know those cigarettes are bad for you? I'm a boxer, so I know cigarettes are bad for you. Is that something you do as well? Just curious. Thank you for your infinite wisdom, though. I really appreciate it. Any other tidbits you'd like to offer? Hey, everyone, you should drink enough water. Make sure you're doing that. Diet and exercise is important. Try to get a good amount of sleep every night. Get out in the sunlight sometimes. It's good for you. Here's a tip. When you can, if you're only going a short distance, walk instead of driving your car. You'll save gas money and burn some of those calories. Thanks, Guy. Wow. These are some interesting points that no one's ever thought to make. Fantastic. Thanks so much for being here. I mean, really, this is a life-changing moment. Had Shakespeare not been here, I wouldn't have known that I need diet and exercise. None of the people in my chat would have been aware of it. Thank you so much. It's a very original point. And it's not just the originality of it that makes it amazing. It's just how sophisticated you delivered it. That's what's really amazing. And that you had the courage to be the only person that would say something like that. I find it amazing. Truly, you are an inspirational person. I'm sure your accolades as a boxer and coach have been substantial in the world of boxing/coaching. You're 6-0 as a pro. Congratulations. So, yeah, still, 95% of the time I bring up those riots and, people using Molotov cocktails to try to break into the White House, what's the response I get? I was unaware of that. You don't think that's a problem? Why do you think it is that the media didn't think that was a big deal? Why were they mocking Trump for being moved to a bunker? You'd think if that same riot, the exact same amount of people using the exact same weaponry, harming the exact same amount of Secret Service agents occurred today, except it was Trump supporters trying to harm Joe Biden, do you think the media would be calling Biden a bunker bitch if they moved him to a bunker? Just curious. You think they'd be saying, no big deal? Or would they be saying, my God, it's another insurrection. My God, call in the National Guard. You know the answer. So do I. And I know all the, but it's different. It's different. When our side did it, it was different. It was different. Trust us. It's bullshit. We all know it. I'm sure people have seen this. It kind of went viral, but. So the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing. Who's most effective? If you're a lefty, right, and you're like, okay, I'm pissed. Amber Heard lost. Who's most affected by this? Put your progressive hat on. Okay, who's most affected? Let's see if we can get some answers. Someone probably saw this article, but who do you think? Who's most affected? If you're a progressive, who do you think is most affected by Amber Heard? Let's see if we get an answer here. We'll give you a little music to think about it. Amber Heard loses her trial. Progressives say, who's most affected? Oh my goodness, stop the presses. Dub Rizzle gets it. That's right. My goodness, you win absolutely nothing except my admiration. Congratulations, Dub Rizzle. Yes, a wealthy white woman who abused her husband, shit in his bed, defamed him, lied about him, committed slander against him, and then lost a trial after appearing unhinged and having incompetent leaders. Now being forced to pay up to $7.5 or $8.5 million. And who is this a dire signal for? Black women. Yes, that is the correct answer. The correct answer is black women. But Rob, you say, where the fuck was there a black woman remotely affected in this trial by anything? I didn't see any black. Amber Heard's not a black woman. No black woman seemed to testify, be part, to my knowledge, I didn't follow the trial that good. How are black women affected? Oh, shit. Now you know where I got that music from. Amber Heard found guilty of defamation. Black women impacted most. The Root says Amber Heard verdict sends a message to black women everywhere. Technically true. But me drinking this water sends a message to black women everywhere as well. In that everything's a message, and black women are people that can interpret messages, so everything that's, I guess, technically, it's so fucking ridiculous. I mean, how easy must it be to be a progressive and just churn out this bullshit? I could do it. You'll see. This randomizer debate's coming up in the Crucible. It's all about small topics that you have to defend shit you don't believe in. You'll see. I'll get progressive bullshit that I'll be able to defend. It's so fucking easy. It's so easy. Someone give me a topic. Just anyone. Throw a topic out there. Something that happened in the news. Right? I'll give you Craig's perspective. Craig's not here tonight, but I'll give you what his perspective would be. Just throw out any topic. Put it to the test. Shooting. There's a shooting in Tulsa tonight. It looks like a black man used a rifle and a handgun to kill 5 people. I don't know the circumstance, but I can tell you this. This black man shooting these people, it's white supremacy. That's what it is. It's white supremacy. Canadian handguns, they took handguns away in Canada. And the reason they did that was because it will protect black people in Canada more than anyone else. Anyone who is suggesting that Canada shouldn't outlaw handguns is clearly a white supremacist who's seeking to harm black people. And I can explain why. Because people that like handguns provably are people that are more fearful. And that fearfulness comes from racism because they're white and they understand that they have subjugated black people through history. And so they have this fear that black people will eventually say, no, we've had it. We're not going to be treated like slaves anymore. And so they need to have that protection of handguns. That's why they're so vigorously arguing against a handgun ban, because of their fear and racism towards black people. Muscle-bound juice-head gorillas. Look, the idea that gorillas are getting stronger in captivity and like they either get out of shape, live longer, or they're getting stronger in the wild and things like this, all of this stems back to black women being negatively affected. The reason for it's quite simple, because you see, our impact on the environment disproportionately affects black women. So we're going to see this manifest in sort of some of the higher mammals that are closer to us. So for example, when gorillas' habitats are infringed upon and gorillas are forced then to have different dietary habits and change their sort of social dynamics, what that really showing you is that somewhere black women are going to be affected more negatively because the same sort of deforestation that would cause that environmental impact is going to disproportionately affect black women as well. Biden said the Second Amendment's not absolute. He's absolutely right. And that statement protects black women more than anyone else. Now, it is true that originally people that made anti-Second Amendment arguments and tried to get gun confiscation and gun control were saying so to keep weapons out of the hands of black people. But the reality is those people were actually protecting black people, especially black women, because we know that this history of guns, again, is based on the idea of otherization and fear of the other. And so by removing that, we actually benefit black people the most. Baby formula. Who's most disproportionately affected by baby formula? We know that because of sort of GMOs and the influence of poison into our foods, and because black people are disproportionately impoverished, that they're having a poor dietary conditions, that makes it more difficult for poor black women to breastfeed. And so they have to rely on baby formula. So right now what's happening is a baby formula shortage is disproportionately affected poor black women. And that's what it's designed to do. So when this Abbott facility shut down, it's greedy formula makers companies that are intentionally getting rich off the backs of black women, which they're most negatively affecting by having this baby formula shortage. Well, thanks. It's me, Chuckles. Everything. It's easy. I can switch if you don't want to do black women. Fuck. Trans people? You want to do trans? Oh, it's chest feeding. I'm sorry. Fuck. My bad. Here we go. Here comes that Twitch ban. Alien probes. Listen, the idea of sort of denying that there could be intelligent life out there, it has to do with the idea of subjugating black people, particularly black women in general. This is because the white patriarchy has deemed that there can't be aliens because white people must be at the top of the evolutionary pyramid. And so they constantly say that it would be impossible for more intelligent life to be out there. And the reality is that more intelligent life would probably have more to do with sort of the peaceful traditions of black people that have been subjugated, because chances are intelligent life has experienced all sorts of cultural hierarchies, and they understand and sympathize more with the hierarchies and the people in those that have been subjugated, because they didn't, as we all know, historically black people weren't engaged in that sort of subjugation, and they've been the victim throughout history. So aliens would more identify with black people, understanding that they are the more benevolent people because they haven't engaged in this subjugation. So it's up to the white patriarchy to deny the existence of these alien civilizations, because to acknowledge it would be to acknowledge that white people aren't superior and they're wrong to subjugate anyone. Right? Or reason that it seems to be rural white people that see aliens more is they need to experience this sort of subconscious reality that they're ashamed of themselves. They have to manifest stories because they're ashamed of their ancestors. And so these people seek glorification. They have to seek kind of being the center and the spotlight for something because they understand that there is shame in the subjugation of how they treat black people, particularly black women. You can notice these same sort of people that claim that they see aliens and things like that and seek the spotlight. They're always trying to talk over or mansplain, particularly when women of color color are speaking up. So it makes sense that these sort of people that have embraced the tradition of the South, of the Civil War, of the Confederacy, are also the same people that will be talking about aliens and simultaneously be attempting to speak over and diminish the contributions of black women in our society. It's easy. That's all they do. Flat Earth. You can go both ways with that. But enough of this fun for tonight. I mean, it's a fucking joke. Half the shit I'm saying will be within 5 years. Will be fucking yep. That's why it's so ridiculous. James Lindsay did this, right? All these papers that James Lindsay and his crew were submitting to peer-reviewed papers and getting, It's bigoted to not leave your male dog hump another dog at the park. They took quotes from Mein Kampf and changed the word Jew to white people and got that put in a peer-reviewed paper. I mean, it's a fucking joke. But you hesitate to make the jokes because they're so ridiculous that they're like, yeah, yep, absolutely. Fat Earth, another joke at my expense. That's the problem with sarcasm. If the other side's ridiculous enough, they accept the sarcasm as reality. Yeah, you're a bigot if you don't date trans people. I said that was coming. I said that years ago. I said the argument's going to be that, right, they argue that any sort of discrimination is bad. Well, that's not true. Obviously, when we're talking about things like racial discrimination, that's bad, right? But we use discrimination all the time in our lives in fundamental, basic ways. For example, we discriminate on who we date and who we marry. I'm married to one woman. I discriminate in that I don't marry any other woman. I don't sleep with any other woman. I had a preference for the type of woman that I wanted to date. That's discrimination. You might have a preference for the type of person you want to hire at your company. You might have a preference for the type of person that you want to be friends with. Not a racial preference, but a preference in how they act, how they talk, their interest, etc. That's all discrimination. And if you say discrimination is always bad because it leads to people that are oppressor versus people that are oppressed, which is what they try to do, okay, well then who are you to discriminate against people based on things like their sex or their attractiveness? You shouldn't be allowed to discriminate. If you're going to have sex with one person, you shouldn't discriminate who that is. You should have sex with anyone who wants to have sex with you. I mean, now their discrimination's okay. They as always, they'll... it's okay for them to discriminate. The desperate sort of progressive guys that hang on to all these feminist groups, Oh, yeah, I agree with you so much. I agree with you. And then half them are just trying to get laid. That's what they're doing. That's the only way they know how to talk. The people they're attracted to. All these people that are like, you're a bigot if you're unwilling to sleep with trans people. You can't discriminate against what you're sexually attracted to. None of those ladies are jumping to sleep with the soy boys that are, right? It's always the friend zone for those guys. Can you imagine if those soy boys got a little nerve and was like, hey, wait a minute. Why aren't you hooking up with me? That's discrimination. Oh, the pride shit. Fuck. I'm so tired of the LGBT pride. I'm fucking tired of it. Let me be clear. I don't give a fuck who consenting adults are sleeping with. Don't give a shit. I believe gay marriage should be legal. I've been pretty firm on that. Some of my best friends are members of the LGBT community. Gay. I don't really have any trans friends, though I do have a couple just people I've associated with that are trans. But I don't hate someone because they're trans. I'm just tired of the pride. What is there to say? No one gives a shit anymore. Cool, you're gay. And next, moving on. I don't give a shit who you're sexually attracted to. I don't give a shit. At all. It's not something to take pride in anymore. Originally, when it was like, well, we were oppressed and now we're not. Okay. You kind of thumbed your nose and said, we're going to be ourselves. Those days are done. It is so in vogue now that every corporation is falling over themselves to announce, yay, gay pride. NASCAR today put a, yay, we're celebrating Pride Week. The Marines put it, we're celebrating Pride. It's every fucking institution. Okay, you're mainstream now. That's it. It would be as stupid as white pride. Cool. Okay, I guess. Great. You have pride in it. Great. Do what you got to do. Fine. Great. I'm tired. And I'm not even blaming. Like the gay people I'm friends with, they don't think it's cool. Oh, wow. I'm going to go to McDonald's now. They put out for Gay Pride Month, they put out a nice slogan. They're just like, well, whatever. It's all fucking bullshit. It's all just people marketing, trying to get a quick buck. They know it. Everybody knows it. It's just old. All the pronouns in the email. Yeah, I'm the same shit with me. But let's see if I got a couple other things to talk about. But it's not all gay people. It's not all LGBT people. Many of them do just want to be treated normally. I'm friends with a dude. That dude happens to have a boyfriend. Great. I'm friends with a dude. That dude happens to have a girlfriend. Great. I don't give a shit. When I go out to the game and we're watching it and we're at the bar drinking beer and eating pizza, I don't give a fuck. I don't want to hear either of those guys talk about their sexual preferences or their sexual... I just don't give a shit. I don't care. It's irrelevant to me. I don't take pride in my sexuality. UFC posted it. And most of the people I know aren't like that. They're not like, yeah, but pride. It's just like, whatever. All right, what else we got? Real quick. It's midnight. I do want to hear this clip. I read... I saved this because I wanted to hear this. This is Dr. Birx. Remember Dr. Birx? Anyone remember her? She was like the second in command of Fauci while Trump was in office. It was talking to us about COVID. Let's hear what Dr. Birx has to say about mask mandates now that evidence is coming out that, surprise, surprise, they had little to no effect.
The thing about masking is you have to wear them in order for them to work. And so when you see these rates in cities, it's because a lot of us, when we get together, we don't wear masks when we're with our friends and families around the dining room table. And frankly, that's where a lot of spread is occurring. When you're in contact with people and their air that they're breathing because it remains suspended in the air, then that can be a very real reason why it isn't really evident that masks are working well. But I know masks work well because I have worn them in multiple situations where people on either side of me were positive and I have not become infected. And
that's bullshit. For a doctor to say that is absolute bullshit for two reasons. One, your anecdotal situation doesn't prove. I could say the same thing, right? I could say, well, I know, like, for example, one of the criticisms of Joe Rogan was, and this is a fair criticism, Joe Rogan got COVID, then he took ivermectin. Does that prove ivermectin cures COVID? No. Maybe Joe Rogan didn't have terrible effects from COVID because he's sort of younger and healthier. He's in shape. Maybe it had to do with the other medications Joe Rogan was talking about. Maybe the strain of COVID that Joe Rogan got wasn't a serious strain. It could have been a bunch of things. But she's making a claim similar to Joe Rogan could say, I had COVID, I took ivermectin, therefore I know it works. She's saying, I was around people with COVID, I had a mask on, therefore I know the mask works. Or your immune system was strong enough that you didn't get COVID, or you didn't breathe in enough of the infection to be infected, and it had nothing to do with the mask, or the infection wasn't that viral of a strain that would affect someone like you. It could be a litany of things. Secondly, when did it become the story that masks protect you from COVID? I thought that it was masks protect everyone else. You wear the mask, not because it stops you from getting COVID, but because if you do get infected, it contains the water droplets to prevent other people from getting COVID. That's what I was told. Now Dr. Birx is saying, no, the mask protects me. So that seems to be another changing of the story. Third, what the fuck is she talking about? When it comes to the idea of, well, okay, so people are wearing masks when they're out in public and when they're out at the store, but they're not wearing them when they're back home. Well, two things on this. One, blame Dr. Birx and Dr. Fauci and Joe Biden and all these other assholes that we constantly see wearing masks in public and then as soon as the cameras are off, taking them off and not wearing masks with their home family, etc., etc. And secondly, if you know that, then why pass the mandate in the first place? If you're like, well, basically it'll be ineffective because we know, even though we could shame people to wearing them in public, as soon as they get home with their family, they're going to take the mask off, and that's where they're most likely to get COVID. Okay, then why even have the fucking mandate if you know that's what people are going to do? What other bullshit? This is the expert we're told we have to trust? I know masks work because one time I wore it and I didn't get COVID. What? Wouldn't the inverse of that argument? I know masks don't work because one time I was working with a guy with COVID and didn't have a mask on and I didn't get COVID. Therefore, that proves masks don't work. She would say, what? No, that doesn't prove anything. Right, and neither does your example. Let's finish this up. What? I didn't watch this. I'm glad I did. What a crock of shit.
And the 9 of us in my immediate household that have had to stay negative because we have vulnerable people in our household, we've upgraded our masks to make sure that they are working and they fit well. And so I still mask on airlines, but mandates should never be an excuse for not.
Real quick, I noticed she's not wearing a mask during this interview. Is there anyone in this place where she's at? Is there someone holding a camera? Did someone set it up? Does she have a husband, a child that's there with her? Because that would be hypocritical, right? To say the problem is, yes, people are wearing them in public, but not in their homes. And then do an interview from your home where people are not wearing a mask. Just a thought.
Empowering the American people with the knowledge that they need to understand why masks work and why they should be used in certain situations. And I think sometimes we use mandates because we don't want to take the time to explain the science and the data and really have people understand who should be using them and why they should be using them.
That's an incredible statement. We use mandates because we don't think that we could explain to exactly who should use the mask and why it would be effective. So we'll just force everyone all the time. Are you shitting me? That's an incredible admission. Well, we can't explain to you exactly who should be wearing the mask and why it's beneficial. It would be too difficult for us ivory tower folks to explain that to you. So we're just going to say, hey, plebes, all of you wear the mask. Oh, and by the way, even forcing you to do that did nothing. Right, and that's always, anytime a study comes out that says something like this, well, this study shows that actually the mask mandate didn't work. They're always like, well, that's because people didn't do it properly. Okay, well, if you see time after time that there's no incident that you could point to in a large-scale environment where people did it properly, then why would you keep pushing the mandates? Our family ratted her out. That's funny if that happened. If the government came out and said, we're going to force everyone to eat broccoli at every meal. We're going to force them. And our evidence shows if people did that, they would be far healthier. So we're going to force everyone to eat broccoli. We're going to pass these mandates. If you can't prove that you've eaten your broccoli today, you can't shop in the store, right? And then no one did it. No one fucking ate the broccoli. And the government's like, well, the places that had the mandates did exactly the same as the places that didn't. But it's not because we're wrong about broccoli. It's because people refuse to eat the broccoli, even with the mandate. Then why keep doing the fucking mandate? And they're not even, the studies aren't saying, well, places with mask mandates had 20% better numbers than those. They're saying there was no difference. None. So it's not even like they could say, well, the mandate helped somewhat because it convinced some people to wear the mask. Their argument is it didn't do anything. It didn't help people make the decision to wear the mask when it mattered, regardless if there was a mandate or not. Okay, then the mandate sucks. Now, it could be that the mask didn't do all the shit that you told us. That could be what it is. But let's assume that's not the case. The evidence is pretty clear. The mandates didn't do shit. So what are you going to do to force people to wear the mask? All it did... Yeah. By the way, broccoli is my son's top 3 favorite food. My son Hank, who's 18 months old, absolutely loves broccoli. Loves it. Sure, you can put cheese on it. It's just incredible. Oh, we force mandates because we don't have the time or the ability to explain to people why they should wear masks. So we just say, shut your mouth and wear it. Same thing they did with lockdowns. Huh. Whoops. But it's nice to have an admission of that. Don't challenge them, though. You'll get censored. You just got to listen to whatever they say. Trust them. It's for your own good. Sometimes they just have to bullshit you. It's for your own good. And then even when it ends up being the wrong decision, oh, well, it was still for your own good. Yeah, I agree. Fresh broccoli, far better than frozen broccoli. Am I the only person? I enjoy canned green beans more than a garden fresh green bean. Other than that, I can't think of any vegetable that I like that's sort of more processed than the garden variety. But green beans, for some reason, I love canned green beans with a little bit of butter, salt. Great. We already talked about Biden claiming he acted fast on the infant formula crisis, but he wasn't aware of it until April, despite the fact that people were talking about it in December and January. Good job, Biden. I got a fun story to end with. Did y'all see this? This is the best video I've seen since. Remember there was this campaign video that someone did? And it was a Democrat, and it was like showing these kids like, well, I'll see if I can find it. Let me see if I can find this video real quick. Oh boy. It was Ed Gillespie, yeah. Does anyone remember this video? This is one of my favorites. This ad might be worse. But here is Ed Gillespie running against, I forget who it was. But the Latino Victory Fund ran this ad. Get ready for this. This is good shit, okay? So this is like 2016 or something. Yeah, you got it, Bandit. This is great. Here's it. Now remember, Republicans are the party of fear and demonizing their opponents, says Vosh, as he suggests shooting legally open carrying people. Oh, wait, what's going on? Why no sound? Give me a second. No sound? Well, that defeats the purpose. You need the sound. There we go. Maybe my headset's dying. I'll have to charge it tonight. You ready? This is so great. Oh, these kids look cool. What's happening? All right. Uh-oh. Here comes a Trump supporter. Oh, there he is. I'd have to breathe if I ran that much, too. Oh, here he comes.
Run!
Uh-oh. Get out of here. Here comes the Trump supporters. They're trying to murder children. Here they come. Oh, and he's driving a gas guzzler pickup truck.
Come on!
There you go. Get out of there, kids. Oh, don't tread on me, son. No! Those damn conservatives. Uh-oh. No. Oh. Yeah, think about that.
Is this what Donald Trump and Ed Gillespie mean by the American dream? Latino Victory Fund paid for and is responsible for the...
Is this what Donald Trump wants? People in gas-guzzling pickups to run over minority children? Maybe. Better vote Democrat. By the way, how's that message working out with Hispanics? Only so much of, we don't have any plans for you and our policies all make your lives shittier, but the other side's evil racists that want to run over your children with trucks. I guess that only works so much. But don't tell Rand Paul's challenger that. We have a contender for the throne, ladies and gentlemen. Are you ready? Content warning. This may contain strong imagery. Viewer discretion's advised. What is Rand Paul about? Why do we need to vote for this Democrat? Ready?
The pain of our past, it persists to this day. In Kentucky, like many states throughout the South, lynching was a tool of terror.
Terrible.
It was used to kill hopes for freedom. It was used to kill my ancestors. Now, in a historic victory for our Commonwealth, I have become the first Black Kentuckian to receive the Democratic nomination for U.S. Senate. My opponent, the very person who compared
Oh my God, he's white?
To slavery. The person who said he would have
My
opposed
God.
the Civil Rights Act. The person who single-handedly blocked an anti-lynching act from being federal law.
No. I mean, he did sponsor
couldn't be
a
clearer.
different anti-lynching act that actually did
Move
more.
forward together, or do we let politicians like Rand Paul forever hold us back and drive us apart? In November, we will choose healing. We will choose Kentucky.
You're goddamn right. Thank you, man. Charles Booker, you got my vote, man. I mean, I was thinking of voting for the other guy because I agreed with his political ideology more, but I guess he wants to kill you with a noose. So that seems bad. That seems like a bad deal. You know, the Republicans are the party of hatred and the party of, fear. They're constantly fear-mongering about the other side. You don't see that sort of shit from the Democrats. But if you don't vote Democrat, they're going to hang black men and they're going to run over minority children in trucks. The Democratic Party is a party of hope and love. It doesn't have to spread fear-mongering like those evil Republicans. And by the way, if you vote for Republican, if you vote for Glenn Youngkin, a bunch of tiki torch wielding Nazis are his supporters that, were just Democrats put in clothing like that. Yeah, Kamala Harris. My first word, I was at the parade when I was a kid, and there was people marching, and I saw black people marching, and I was just a toddler, and my mom looked down at me, and I said, freedom. These people so badly want this country to be the racist hellhole that they paint it as, so that they can be portrayed as the victim. No, you might not like Rand Paul. Fine. You think that has anything to do with this fucking asshole putting his head in a noose? What a shitty thing to do. And then you go to the comments and everyone's like, great ad. Wow, that's so inspiring. Good stuff. I thought that was great. Yeah, let's see some of the comments here in this area. Powerful. It connects with Rand Paul's blocking of an anti-lynching bill for January 6th. That's one of the best ads I've ever seen. It's different but necessary. When I see this video, I consider Mammy Till Mobley, who left Emmett's casket open for this reason. Made a shiver run down my spine. Democrats are criticized for being soft on messaging. Considering where things are right now, we have no choice but to turn the heat up. Those of you who may feel uncomfortable about this, that's the whole point. powerful. Yes, it is. I hope he wins. Ready to canvass for it. The ad gave me chills. I'm glad Charles Booker decided to run again. I'll be voting for him in November if I can find my polling place. Risky but bold. With what's at stake, I have to support. Those bots. Of course, Crimson. Liberal ideology is immune to fascism. Just like it's immune to terrorism. How? Well, we define fascism as only right-wing. So when we see the tools that people complain, right, all of this is just semantic bullshit. Why do we dislike fascism? Well, it's because the things that rise out, the tactics that fascists use, the way the systems ends up operating and things like that. Right? So, for example, name some things we would hate about fascism. Using violence to subjugate people that disagree with you. Can we all agree that's something, when we talk about fascism, that we have a fear of? Yeah, I saw computer carnage. I have nothing to say on the mass shooting that occurred a couple hours ago. I don't know anything about it. Right? We all would agree that's something we hate about fascism. Okay. So if we see a left-wing ideology that's embracing that, we would say, well, that's bad. And they say, but it's not fascism. Okay. Who gives a shit what you call it? The primary reason I hate fascism is the violence and the boot being brought down on people that disagree with the system. So if you embrace a system that involves violence and subjugating people that disagree with you, but you don't call it fascism, I still fucking hate it. That's right. No one knows what the definition is. They just throw it around. I've gone through Umberto Eco's, 12 points of fascism and showed that the majority of them, the left represents more than the right at this point. I mean, basically, people just define it how they want. Stop spamming LWell, please. Franco the detective. Funny. A proud fascism endorser coming in here. Sure. That's right, Chuckles. They parrot these Nazi tactics all the time. Antifa literally does the shit that not fascists do, but says, well, we can't be fascist because we're anti-fascist. Now, for a fun topic. So, Democrat friend of mine that helped run my campaign, his name's Tom. We disagree on a lot politically, but we're really good friends. I think he's an intelligent person, and even though we disagree politically, I know he's a good faith person who's smart. I've been friends with him for a long, long time. So we don't talk a lot of politics to each other, some periphery stuff, but Tom was on Twitter today, and I think it led to a very humorous thread that I wanted to see what you all think about. So we're hitting the big topics, Tom and I. So way back in July 3rd of 2021, I tweeted out a post that my friend Tom ended up commenting on. Did anybody remember this? Biden's Moomer's ice cream order? Double-dipped waffle cone with vanilla chocolate chip. I say, thank goodness our heroes in the press keep on top of Biden's ice cream saga. Medal of honors for them all. My friend Tom says, where's the article about how he bites into the ice cream first instead of licking around the edges? And this is true. Look at this. What kind of maniac eats ice cream like that? He's just biting it. And so my friend Tom felt necessary to point that out. Good, astute point. Now, that was from July 2021. Here's Tom retweeting this today. He says, so I stumbled upon this picture and was reminded about this picture of Biden. And I'm now trying to figure out why presidents, at least the Democrat ones, don't know how to eat ice cream. I will continue to research. So here we have Obama with the cone using a spoon. My friend Tom, who is a Democrat, is like, Why can't Democrat presidents eat ice cream? And then, now he's got a picture of Bill Clinton. And he says, this is President Clinton eating an ice cream cone at Penn State. Looks like a reasonable eating style. But the story behind the picture is a tale of corruption. This is only the second time in history that someone has abused their power to get 2 different flavors in one cone at Penn State University. So here it looks like a more reasonable kind of more of a suction, maybe lick there by Bill Clinton. But apparently he used his authority to get 2 scoops of different flavors of ice cream at Penn State, which was not allowed. And then I responded. I said, Clinton scandals ranked. Lewinsky scandal. Penn State ice cream scandal. Whitewater. Oh, and killing all those people that were going to out as corruption. Progressive brat. She doesn't want to call into debate. I'm not going to listen to you as a man, right? And then my buddy Tom says, killing them with delicious ice cream, no doubt. So that's a real story about Clinton, by the way. And another fun fact is the other person in this photo was the president of Penn State, who got caught up in a little scandal a decade and a half later himself. Ah, yes, there he is. Got caught up in the, what was that guy's name? Well, Paterno got caught up in it too, but I forget the asshole pedophile's name. And then I come up with the, we should do a monthly podcast with ice cream related scandals and stories in politics. He says, I'm game. We might need to branch out into all food related scandals with politics. Not sure ice cream has legs to stand on. Oh, it's been a treat so far. Political eats. 2 fat guys break down food faux pas of those much more successful and bring them down a peg for trying to eat like a real person. I think I'm on to something. Sandusky, that was the asshole's name. Yeah. No, Clinton didn't kill people with ice cream. He really forced them to give him 2 different flavors in one cone of ice cream, though, at Penn State. I think we're on to something. A monthly podcast with just me and Tom are like food-related scandals in politics. First episode. Donald Trump's cabinet gets 1 scoop of ice cream. He gets 2. Let the debate begin. You know, who could forget Joe Biden's chocolate chip moment? And I bet there's actually a lot of historical, pretty humorous stories about presidents and politicians with food. So there you go. Political eats. I was trying to think of a more humorous name than that, but Trump drinking the water. That would be one, right? Yeah, there's all, just in the past 4 years. For Biden alone, the media spent the first 4 months of Biden's presidency exclusively asking him about his ice cream flavors and choices. Let's do it. I know what everyone wants. Let's just do it. Let's stop beating around the bush. Let's do it. Let's give everyone what they want. Hopefully this is the right clip. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you not just the President of the United States, but the most wonderful, dedicated, brave press corps in the history of the world. I give you chocolate chip. Mr. President, what did you order? Well, let's play the whole thing first, and then we'll analyze it. Mr. President, what did you order?
Chocolate chip.
Oh, yeah. Chocolate chip. What is your message to Republicans who are prepared to block the January 6th commission?
Eat some chocolate chip.
Yeah. Now, let's do it again, shall we? And let's pause for the high points here. Number 1, here's Joe Biden. Very happy man. Finally, something that he's qualified to do as president. Eat some ice cream. He's having a good day. Secret Service guy back there looks nonplussed, though. He's like, I don't know. But we have the vaunted White House press corps out here, and they're going to ask the difficult questions today. So let's see how this gaggle appreciates the question that's going to be asked of Joe Biden. Here comes the hard-hitting question. Ready?
Mr. President, what did you order?
What did you order? Now, you'll notice this is a very crucial point right here. Now, look at Joe Biden's face. You can't see his eyes, but notice how he looks now because he doesn't know what he ordered. Because he's sadly a dementia-addled old man who was installed into the presidency by a bunch of people that drug basically an empty husk that wasn't even campaigning the last 2 months to the presidency. So can't really answer many questions too effectively nowadays. But he's finally asked a question in his mind process. What did I order? Oh, he looks. So he looks down. Doesn't know that he ordered chocolate chip, but he looks down just to make sure that this time he's giving a correct answer. Ready?
Chocolate chip.
Let's go back.
Chip.
Oops, sorry.
Chocolate chip.
Now there is a man. Have you ever seen a man beam with such pride? Look at that smug lip curl. He looks, he sees, he correctly identifies, ma'am, I'm eating chocolate chip. That's what I'm eating. Look at that smile. Finally, a question that Joe Biden is prepared to answer. He has the qualifications. He's eating the ice cream. He knows what the ice cream is after reconfirming by looking at it. He proudly holds his cone in the air. He embraces a smug look and says, chocolate chip. And then he sits back with pleasure, right? It's amazing. It's really good. I feel very good. This is probably the high point of Joe Biden's presidency. Finally, questions that the vaunted press corps is asking that he's capable of handling. Let's rewind it a little again. So watch it in
Chocolate chip.
Now, you might notice, as impressive as Biden, he's attacking again, right? Like, he proudly holds the cone up, he announces what it is, and now he's back in. He's not just going to answer the question and put the... This is a man who truly loves chocolate chip, and he's kind of putting an exclamation point by taking a large bite right now. And I really appreciate that, right? It's chocolate chip. That's right, Buck Swain. Maybe I'm not pronouncing it in the proper Bidenisms, right? But what you'll notice is this is a big hit, this answer with the press. Listen to the reaction from this. This is amazing. You would have thought this man, just solved world peace by the reaction of the press.
Chocolate chip.
Oh, whoa, snap. Did you hear that? Whoa, chocolate chip. Oh my God, that's amazing. Have you ever... Dude, our president that we cover as journalists, he's eating chocolate chip. That is amazing. Yeah, I've had chocolate chip myself. Whoa, high five. This is amazing. Chocolate chip. That's amazing. But as good as that is, listen to this one man, and I'll interpret what he's saying. You're going to hear him, all right? He's going to start speaking here. Listen to what he says at the end of the, audible elation that you have from the press. Listen to what this one man says. Ready?
Chocolate chip.
He says chocolate chip. What he's saying, my interpretation, let's listen again. He said chocolate chip is, listen to him again. You ready?
Chocolate chip.
What he's going to say is chocolate chip is my favorite. Like, the president's just like me and just like the members of the press corps. He likes chocolate chip. This guy who's here in this gaggle, that's something he could appreciate. He can't believe it. It'd be like for me, 20-year-old Rob, if he was watching a press conference of the president and the president cracked open a Natty Ice and said, I'm drinking Natty Ice, I would have went, oh, and Natty Ice is what I drink. That's what 20-year-old Rob would have said. But this member of the press corps, very impressed. In addition to the elation that people are going, he's like, chocolate. I find this to be particularly interesting that he not only was so impressed that Joe Biden eats an ice cream flavor that he likes, but he had to tell people. Right in the middle of this, he's like, oh, everyone's like, yeah. And this guy's like, hey, chocolate chip's my favorite too. And I think that this guy expected people to give him like a similar, yeah, this guy likes it too, man. Who else likes chocolate chip? Hooray! Fuck Xi, fuck Putin, fuck all the problems in the world. Inflation, who gives a fuck? Our president likes ice cream that we like. Chocolate chip. Look at this man of the people attack this ice cream cone. Amazing. But listen, I'm jesting a little at the press here. They're going to get to asking the important questions. And so let's ask a very difficult question of Joe Biden. I don't know. How about a grandstanding political agenda that he's all in favor of anyways, the January 6th Commission? Let's see what even if it is sort of a softball question to him, at least it's substantive. Let's see how the president answers this. I mean, after all, it's about an insurrection. So I'm sure he'll treat it seriously, right?
What is your message to Republicans who
Ugh, look. Ugh, what is my message to Republicans? Ugh. Now, this is tough. This is a tougher question. Even though it's a sycophantic press that's lobbing softball questions at him that anyone with half a brain would be able to answer. Unfortunately, Joe Biden kind of a few, cells short of having a full brain at this point. So right now he's grimacing. Shit. A real question. A softball question, but a real question. How am I going to answer it? But he comes up with the perfect answer. Watch. So, this is about an insurrection. So let's go back and see.
We're prepared to block the January 6th commission.
Eat some chocolate chip.
Yeah, eat some ice cream. Woo! And the press is like, oh man, this guy, he has the charisma of Churchill, the intelligence of Einstein, the humor of a young George Carlin. He's the total package. What a beautiful, perfect answer. Mr. President, you've been telling us that there was an insurrection and we need to have a committee and the Republicans are fighting it. Your message to them is, eat some ice cream. Oh, yeah, eat some ice cream, says the press. Just take that. What gets me is he's obviously just joking because he's basically an invalid and he doesn't have answers to anything and he's just an old man trying to enjoy his ice cream right now. And he understands that these are all sycophants, so all he has to do is mime like he's doing something and say some words and everyone's going to applaud like seals, Hey. He already had one zinger. He correctly identified the type of ice cream he was eating. Then he enunciated that by taking a bite out of that ice cream. Holy shit, this guy's riding a high horse now. He's on a high streak. So ask a question about something, bring it back. Bring it back to the ice cream, baby. Give them what they want. That's what they want. They already went nuts with the ice cream answer. Let's bring it back there. As funny as that is, what I think's actually funnier is that these people in the audience think that this is like some big zinger. We got those fucking Republicans now. Why don't you just shut your mouth and eat some ice cream? Oh, what next, Joe Biden? Some yo mama jokes that you're going to bring out that the press is going to kiss your ass for? Is that what's coming next? Meanwhile, the only person that comes looking half sensible in all this is this agent behind him. He's just like, God damn it. How did I end up with this job? Unbelievable. So let's see how it finishes out again, right?
The January 6th commission.
Eat some chocolate chip.
Yeah, eat some ice cream, you fuckers. You insurrectionists, why don't you settle down as we try to go after everyone and put them in solitary confinement and go after all of our political opponents with the FBI and claim that they're insurrectionists and shit like that? Why don't you just stop whining and eat some ice cream? Oh my God, what a zinger. Woo! That is great. Now, due to popular request, let's watch this at half speed. Or should we go? Let's do the full enchilada. 0.25 speed. Just watch the intelligence of this man. Listen to the bravery of these brave reporters. Listen to this. Hard-hitting journalist. Murrows. Right? All of the journalists of the past. Edward R. Murrows, fucking Walter Cronkite, and these people asking about ice cream flavors. Let's watch it. Ready? Look at how alert he is. My God. Have you ever seen such an alert man, let alone a president of the United States? The reflexes of a cat. This daunting press corps. Asking presidents difficult questions. He's high alert. He's ready to spring into action as soon as this person asks a question. Let's proceed.
Chocolate chip.
Unbelievable. Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah, look at that bite. He's staring daggers into her right now like, yeah, bitch, you didn't think I knew the answer to that one, did you? Look at that defiant chomp. Yes. Notice how his powerful jowls are munching down on that sweet, delicious chocolate chip. It's very impressive. Now, I'm talking over it, but yes, the January 6th, look, he's ready. Nods his head a little, raises the ice cream. some ice cream. If that doesn't make you proud to be an American, I don't know what will. That's what we should be celebrating today. When was that? Why isn't that a national holiday? When the brave press corps went up to the most competent, intelligent, powerful man in the world and asked him the most difficult of questions. And despite the fact that this press corps was so intimidating, our president of the United States was able to confidently munch down on his chaka chip, defiantly answer the question of what flavor did he choose, enunciate it by munching down on ice cream, and then articulate that this commission designed to prevent and investigate insurrections into our country could merely be solved by, again, eating chocolate chip. That's how I know that our country's in good hands. That's a man that I trust to handle inflation. That's a man that I trust to handle Putin and Xi. That's a press corps that I believe in, that will hold a president's feet to the fire and ask the difficult questions. Imagine it. You wake up tomorrow. You hear sirens. It's finally happened. World War III started. Russia has sent planes over the United States. They've dropped bombs on select cities. Troops have infiltrated. People are taking to the woods calling themselves Wolverines. It's fear, desperation. No one knows what to do. Will larger bombs be dropped? Will our lives ever be the same? And then you remember, you have a president that while this is going on, will be able to confidently tell you the flavor of ice cream he's eating. That's what lets me sleep like a baby at night. That's how I know I'm proud of this country. That's how I know that we're going to win this thing in the end. And I'll know when this conflict happens that our press corps will be there. And they'll say, Mr. President, what flavor of ice cream are you enjoying? And he'll be there. He'll rise to that challenge. You think Putin could do that? You think Xi could do that? Maybe Zelensky. God bless America. God bless chocolate chip. And God bless Joe Biden and our press corps for comforting us when inflation, border crisis, bombing children in Afghanistan, arming our opponents, the Taliban, to be one of the more sophisticated militaries in the area. Record numbers of kids in cages, energy prices that are skyrocketing, disease that's killing people, policies that have caused this inflation, lockdowns and things like that that are exacerbating all the problems that we talked about. When all of these challenges come to a head, there's a man leading this country who could eat and identify ice cream. So, yeah, I'm in a good mood. I don't know what to say. It makes me proud. Makes me very confident that we have the correct people. By the way, listen to all these people when they talk about COVID or when they talk about lockdowns or when they talk about insurrections or when they talk about inflation or when they talk about the need to send money for wars to other countries or where they talk about the need to bomb children and shit like that. You have to listen to them, right? Don't question them. These are the experts. These are the experts. You don't see 2 scoops on that cone. I don't know if Biden can handle 2 scoops at this point. By the way, this isn't the only... So I showed you the ice cream photo earlier, right, where the press was asking about ice cream. Then there was the clip when the Burisma shit broke. So again, I'm like... Here was the press again in July of 2021 covering the ice cream. Biden's Moomer's ice cream order, double dip waffle cone with vanilla chocolate chip. Look at the press. Look how pleased they are. Oh, ice cream. Whoa. There's a job Biden can handle. It didn't stop there before this when the campaign trail. Let's see if I can find this clip. That's not the right one. October 20th. This is ridiculous. I can't believe it. So here's before he was president. This is the incident I was talking about. So at this point, remember in October, the Hunter Biden laptop story broke, which alleged not only was Hunter Biden receiving money from our adversaries, but 10% was going to the big guy. Now, this story was being buried as Russian disinformation by Biden, his cronies, the media, the FBI, the intel agencies, etc., and the social media companies. So finally, we get a chance. What does Joe Biden have to say about it? The media hasn't asked him. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you our vaunted media in October of 2020 asking Biden the hard-hitting questions.
We got everybody milkshake, didn't we?
Yes, we did, sir.
Got everybody?
Yes, they're in the car, sir.
All right.
We got them. See, look.
Mr. Biden, what flavor did you get? We got one vanilla, one chocolate, but I wanted to get what we call black and white, but we're going to move it. In other words, we're going to split it. And one more question.
Thank goodness the press was there. There we go. Now, I'll be fair. I was wrong. This wasn't ice cream. This was a milkshake. That's different. That's technically different. So my bad. My bad. Now, let's see if I can find a longer clip of this because then it actually gets funnier because someone shouts a question about Hunter Biden's laptop and the press boos. They boo it. I'm not making this up. Let's see if I can find it. I wish I was. Let's see if I can find the clip of that. Hopefully this is a longer clip. I'm not sure.
I wanted to get what we call black and white, but we're going to move it. In other words, we're going to split it. And one more question.
No, that's not going to do it. I'll see if I can find it, but here's the link to, right? Mr. Biden, what flavor did you get? It wasn't a kid reporter from Nickelodeon. Those on scene noted the reporter that covers the Biden campaign for Bloomberg. An actual reporter was on the scene on Sunday and asked Biden about the FBI seizing Hunter Biden's laptop. The Democratic candidate refused to answer the question and walked away. Biden, by the way, had no trouble answering the fake reporter's milkshake question, saying he got one vanilla and one chocolate. Another actual reporter, CBS News campaign reporter Bo Erickson, asked Biden on Friday for his response to the New York Post article. I know you would ask. I have no response. It's a smear campaign right up your alley. These are the questions you ask. Chocolate chip. I want to see if I can find that clip. I really do. Where you could hear the question right after the milkshake question. It's just, it's so ridiculous. Oh, no, that. Well, I can't find the video, but a rich tradition of our press corps. Bloomberg, financial news. Mr. President, hard-hitting financial question here. Flavor of milkshake? Well, I wanted to get what we call black and white, but we got one vanilla and one chocolate. Question on the Hunter Biden laptop. Psh. Anyways, we need a ministry of truth to censor disinformation. We have professionals that get to the news that's worth getting to, and we need to trust those professionals. And if they think the most important story at the time is what flavor of ice cream does Joe Biden like, then anyone who thinks otherwise is a fucking Russian that's peddling disinformation and should be censored from social media. What's so hard to understand about that? If they say that any scandal that involves Joe Biden is clearly Russian propaganda and we should focus on flavors of milkshake, then that's what we do. Why do you hate America? Why do you want Putin to win? Don't you understand? Anyways, perhaps me and my friend Tom will start a food political scandal podcast once a month. And we could have other great content like this. If you like this little preview, imagine another fat guy yelling about this shit. Now, I know many people have asked me what my favorite flavor of ice cream is, to which I've told them, until you are a member of the White House press corps, you will not pry that answer from these lips. Only professional journalists could get to the bottom of what flavor of ice cream I prefer. So good luck on that one. Maybe I'd be willing to sell out on this for $1,000. We get $1,000 donation at one point. Maybe I will, in good faith, tell that person and that person alone my favorite flavor of ice cream. So there you have it. Either become a writer for the New York Times that covers the president's press pool, or send me $1,000, which I promise to buy a cone of ice cream of my favorite flavor with that $1,000. All right, let's raid someone tonight. It's getting hot up in this room. Boom, cone of ice cream of my favorite flavor with that $1,000. It's getting hot in her. All right, let's raid someone tonight. It's getting hot up in this room. I forgot to talk about the Stardust thing. Yeah, shit. That's funny. It's getting that funny. Maybe we'll see. All right, let's raid someone tonight. Stardust, Tom Foley, Brittany from Politically Provoked all had their Discord channels totally. That funny. Maybe we'll see. Let's raid someone tonight. Stardust, Tom Foley, Brittany from Politically Provoked all had their Discord channels totally. That funny. Maybe we'll see. Let's raid someone tonight. Stardust, Tom Foley, Brittany from Politically it's me. All had their Discord. My bad. Echo. Sorry about that. Yeah, apparently Politically Provoked's Discord channel got disbanded for having extremists in it. But they also disbanded everyone's account that was a moderator on the channel. And so people like Stardust and Tom Foley were moderators on the channel. So their entire Discords got disbanded. Doing a remix. So maybe we'll talk about that a little tomorrow, and whatever other topics people want to talk about. But I should get to bed tonight. So we have as a chance to raid Stardust or BX Bullet. Let's raid Stardust. Or BX Bullet. Which effectively means, if I agree to go to someone's Discord channel for like a panel debate, and then I forget to leave the channel when I leave, because if you join a channel, you probably just put it in the background and that's that. And then someone on that channel does something shitty, my entire Discord community is wiped out. Not because I did anything, but because I did a debate on there once. Well, we'll raid BX next time. I want to raid Stardust because I want to see if she's saying anything about this ban, because I actually have something that I wanted to ask her about it. So we'll give her a raid. But thank you all, especially those that donated. But thank you to anyone who followed, subscribed, donated, chatted, or even just watched, even if you were just in the background. I appreciate each and every one of you. You are what makes the channel what it is. And I enjoy doing this channel. I don't do it as a career. I do it because I enjoy doing it. So it's a lot of fun. I had a good time tonight. I hope you enjoyed the serious stuff that I was talking about, particularly with the Sussman verdict and things like that. And I'll try to find someone to debate on this stuff, but no one ever wants to debate me on that stuff. So it is what it is. But all right, enjoy this raid of Stardust. Hopefully she's not talking too nonsensical this evening, which she does often. But maybe she'll be talking about this band. So I'll listen for a couple minutes and see what's going on. Thank you so much. I'll probably see you tomorrow evening around 10 p.m. Eastern. As always, have a good one.
Holy shit, that's amazing. Okay, a true MVP, Tide and Wine, with 50 tier 1 sub. Holy shit. Whoa, Rob! Rob Moore with the 32 viewers! Thank you for rating me, Rob! Wow!
Thank you, Rob.
Okay, first off, let me say, Tide and Wine. Wait, give me a second to get the
Of course, it was 41 viewers.
Alright, Tide and Wine. Thank you, once again, for supporting the stream. I definitely didn't deserve 50 tier 1 subs, but you gave them to me. And I want you to know that I will protect these subs with my life. I will be a very good sub protector. I will